So they'll go to the criminal investigation, that's 6 weeks in Georgia. We'll do a partnership with the BIA, U.S. Marshals, and FBI on trafficking, and then missing, murder, indigenous persons. We're focusing on the tribal issues, the sexual assaults, missing, murdered, indigenous persons. We also want to do the school resource program. I was a school resource officer. I really believe in that program by putting officers in the schools and working with our youth, not just walking in the school, but bringing in programs and understanding consequences. We're working now with Wasilla PD on their youth court program. It's a 16-week program, and these kids go, it's twice a week, but these kids are learning how the Constitution works. This stuff's not being taught in some schools. I don't know how it is here. But we want the kids to understand how the system works. So we've got the youth program we're adding in there as well. The goal is in January 2023, after their training, they'll go to the Alaska State Trooper 2-week recert. That's where we would ask for the state certification to do the pilot program. So it's not happening tomorrow or anytime soon. And then after that, we'd like to send our officers. I noticed when we were doing agency assist for the troopers during the storms, we were doing the accident calls, helping troopers because they were so busy. And as we're responding out there with Sutton rescue, the medics are coming from Palmer. So by the time we were out there, it could be 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes during a rollover vehicle accident before medics would get out there. So we did this with Palmer years ago. Our officers were ETT trained, and I'd like to see if we can do that as well, since the response out there is a delay. Whoops. Okay. So this is our first officer we just hired. Her name is Tina Irving, last name Lester. She's from Chickaloon. She is now currently in the academy in Sutton, New Mexico. She's on week 2. She's in boot camp. They are yelling in her face. You step wrong, they're yelling at her, shining their boots, everything. So they're learning a lot in 16 weeks. So that's where Tina's at. Otherwise, she would be here to introduce herself. This is the academy in New Mexico. And at this academy, you've got Border Patrol, U.S. Marshals. It's a phenomenal training facility. I've got LD Howard. He's our new officer. I'll have him introduce himself.
My name is LD Howard. I live up by Hackers Pass. When Donna took the position, she called me up and said, hey, we have an officer position open. I'd really like for you to apply. And so at first I was a little hesitant. I had other things going on. And same kind of story she had, as I was explaining about the core mission and core group, and a lot of the focus is especially on child trafficking and the murder of missing indigenous people. That was part of my background before I got married. I was a child recovery agent, and now that my children are 20 and 16, it's a big part of my life that had been missing for quite a while. And so here's my opportunity now to make a big difference and to get back that. We've actually met with FBI, we've met with different agencies, and they're all on deck for us joining task force and being very involved statewide with all those issues. Federally statewide, excuse me, federal-wide. So, yeah. Happy to be here, happy to serve the community, happy to do whatever I can. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, LD. So in this picture here, I think it's neat. We do a ceremony, and this is Luke's son doing the pin on his uniform, and that's his family. This will be the academy. After the FLETC Academy, yes, sir?
Could you move that mic away from your mouth a little bit?
Is that better here?
Yeah, down. There you go.
All right, sorry. All right. Sorry about that. So after the 16-week academy, these guys will be going to, this is the Indian Country Criminal Investigations, which is in Georgia, and this is where they work with the BIA and also FBI and working on some of the tribal issues in our state. So we're really focusing on how can we fill the gap for the tribal crimes in our state, and what does that look like? Again, here's where they would go to the Alaska State Trooper 2-week academy. So here are some questions I was asked, and I'm hoping I can answer these for you. Who governs the Chickaloon Tribal Police Department? So for us, it's the Federal Commission, so we're governed by the federal government. We have an ORI number. We are a federally recognized police department. We have Doj Grants, and we have to go by, we have to stay in accordance with that. Knowing that, I see a lot of tribes with funding coming into the state of Alaska, and they are looking to do the same program. Since it's not been standardized, I met with the Alaska Native Justice Center, and I would like to see Alaska Tribal Police Association on the federal side, so there is a standard. We're asking for a standard. We're not running out here to do anything right now. We're asking for a standard. What does that standard look like on the federal side? And then you've got the state of Alaska who has the state side. So the state, if we do have state, you have the Alaska Standard Police Council who would regulate us. If you violate it, they can take your certificate away, they can investigate it, and then that officer no longer has a job. Just so you guys know, there are 229 tribes in the state of Alaska. We have more tribes in this state than any other state. So this is a big issue coming, and if we can all work together and work on a plan, and how do we work together? And how do we solve some of these crimes? We have so many victims, and we've got to work in helping our victims. What makes the officers eligible to serve in the community? Officers are required to meet the same standards as any other law enforcement entity in the state if we ask for the state certification. The Alaska Police Standard Councils will not recognize us unless we go to the Federal Academy and the State 2-week Academy at the State Trooper Academy, along with an Vpso program. Now, they've not said they can do this. This is where we have to change statute to allow tribal police to have that authority, and what does that look like? So there's that standard that needs to be put in place. Officers have to pass the rigorous background. I kind of went through this. They got to do a background check, psychological, polygraph, physical examination, and they got to do the academy. There are a lot of police departments in this state that don't even do polygraphs. I think most should. We will do that. We are doing polygraphs. Why do you have to change the statute for this department to work? Because under Alaska state statute, it doesn't recognize tribal police. Even though in the past it looks like officers have gone to the academy, the Alaska Police Standard Council back in the days did recognize them, but they found in the statute it really doesn't. So that was pulled in 2019. So now we're asking to be recognized, and what does that look like I've said, in that standard, and how do we work together? The reason being is if I go to a domestic violence call for a tribal citizen, and it's a misdemeanor, we can handle it in our tribal courts. But if it turns into a serious physical injury, and now it's a felony level, we have no authority. I have to call for a trooper to come help us out. And we know how many, we're shorthanded. We really are here in not only just this area, but in the state of Alaska. And that's why we have a lot of complaints in the villages. Sometimes it'll take hours or days to get a trooper out to investigate. So I think this pilot program can help some of those areas. I don't know if you guys know that we are a PL 280. I'm learning all this stuff here. It's interesting. And then we also have concurrent jurisdiction with the state of Alaska. Here in Alaska, we don't have reservations, and that seems to be a big issue. You've got Metlakatla is the only state-recognized tribe down in the lower southeast by, I think it's Ketchikan. But then you've got tribes that have trust lands and things like that. So how does the state and the tribes work together with concurrent jurisdiction? That's the big question. So officers will better serve the local community through standard concurrent jurisdiction. Concurrent jurisdiction means that more than one agency has power to resolve serious issues that arise within the community. The change of the statute will allow the officers to share policing responsibilities with the community and provide timely response, assisting and investigating local or more serious crimes beyond a simple misdemeanor. Officers will have achieved the necessary training, experience, response accordingly to provide the much needed backup for the state and local law enforcement. So I want you to understand that if you call 911, we're not coming here in Sutton. When you call 911, it goes to MATCOM and it's a trooper. You guys are a trooper area. If the troopers can't respond, that's what we're working on, hopefully, if this works out, an MOU agreement, and they can ask for an agency assist. So we will not be coming to your calls unless troopers ask for an agency assist once we get this passed, if it does. Just so you understand. So we're not taking over the calls in Sutton. Okay. All right. Do you have support from the Palmer Police and Alaska State Troopers? Yes. They are supporting it as long as we go slow and we're doing it right, and we have everybody involved with this process. Okay? So this is why we're coming to the community. We weren't ready at this moment. but here we are, right? Because we're still working on this pilot program and the pieces are still moving. All right, so Palmer Police has been a huge help in this process. When I walked in, I didn't have policy procedures, so it's going to take time to put that together as well. Evidence logs, there's a lot of things that we didn't have that we need to have. So we're not out taking cases except for tribal cases. Okay. Will tribal members be judged by tribal courts for criminal cases? The answer is no. Non-natives cannot be tried in tribal courts. If we did have state jurisdiction and for some reason we arrested a non-native, it will be in a state court. That's not us. It will go to the district attorney's office and it'll go through state court. As you can see, there's many tribes in the lower 48 that have courts. In Alaska, you have 229 tribes and there are many courts here. They have their own government system. Will this cause me a mill rate, increase or new taxes? The answer is no. We are getting federal funding. That's your money coming to us to build the police department, build the court systems, have the family advocate, to work some of these programs. So we can sit here and use this funding and just work on tribal issues, or can we give back to the community? And that's where you guys come in. How do we work together? What does that look like? We have all this funding coming in. No, there has never been a tax or impact of that rural mill rate for any of the CBT services. CBT is federally funded. Therefore, more of your federal dollars are coming back to the community for local public safety and job creation. The Chickaloon is growing, and I don't know if you've been on the website, but lots of postings for jobs. Do I lose my rights to my land? No. Shared jurisdiction for CBT officers would only grant the ability for officers to investigate crimes, has no bearing on private ownership of land. That's your land. So we can't take your land, or we're not going to take over your land. I'm going to have Sheila come up here. She's more the expert on the court system, as I'm still learning it. I want you to understand the process.
Hi, I'm Sheila Olson. Is this the good location? I'm the tribal court administrator, and we only have the types of cases that are listed up here, which are guardianships and conservatorships, tribal adoptions, protective orders of tribal citizens, and then ICWA cases that we help with our ICWA representative. And through that, we are able to help just tribal citizens. We don't go around and mess with any of the state court cases. We don't have, there are a few that the state court calls us and says, it's involving a tribal citizen, could we transfer it to tribal court? But that's all. We don't go around and we're not like ambulance chasers. And the reason that we have the court is because we have, I don't know if everyone has been able to see the flyer that talks about all that Chickaloon does. So that's why we have elders in the community that we need to do conservatorships and guardianships. And we have tribal adoptions because we want to keep the kids in indigenous homes. And then with our ICWA cases, we have an ICWA program, and we have indigenous children that we need to keep in with indigenous homes within the tribe, within all of that.
And how we work with other tribes.
Oh, and we do work with other tribes, you're right. I'm nervous. So we do have other tribes throughout the state that came to our office, and they look at, how do we have a court set up, and so it's a round table, and it's not adversarial in the fact that it's more toward what could the person do to help the other family member that has been like cut wood or do yard work, that kind of thing, if it was that kind of situation. And for What's the next slide? Oh, and so this particular map that everyone was all up in arms that I've heard, this is so that this sheet is the services that Chickaloon provides, and we are in that circle, or the long circle area, because we offer our version of Meals on Wheels. We have a bus system, the CATS, the Chickaloon Area Transit System, that takes people to and from the grocery store, to and from their work, to and from various, whatever they need, whatever that looks like, to and from school, to and from doctor's appointments. And so we just had this as a guide of, if you're within that circle, then you would be able to benefit from the services that are on this list. Like we said, we have students at our school that are from the community, even from Big Lake, just all over. And we have the, like the Meals on Wheels type of thing. It's for our elders who don't have the opportunity or the ability to cook for themselves. So we have a elders lunch program that they do community meals every week, open to the public. And that from that we provide meals to elders, and we call it Elders Lunch Program because it's come have lunch with the elders and talk about, you know, whatever stories, history stories, hunting stories, fishing stories, that kind of thing.
So what services are open to the community?
So services open to the community are there's the clinic, and it's a I missed that. Oh, federally qualified, and so it's also income based. And then the environmental department that it talks about on here, they do archaeological trips, they do rafting trips, so that's also open to the public. And we have culture camp during the summer, and that it's Yanida students and parents, local citizens, other tribal members, other tribes. Sometimes we have people from the lower 48 that come up, and it's learning, you know, how to make a birch bowl and how to make a drum, and again, swapping stories and learning how did all of the centuries, how have things been done.
Thank you, Sheila. So with the federal funding that we have the Doj Grants. So in 2019, we have an equipments grant. 2019, we have a cops hire grant. We have a 2017 cops hire grant, and the 2021 Department of Justice BIA grant. For our courts, we also have additional grants with the Denali Commission Service. We have a victim service advocate. We have the Office of Tribal Judges, so the judges are on that one. Office of Tribal Justice, that's for the clerk, court administrator, and bailiff. Department of Justice, BIA, Court and Justice Director. So these are the current grants that we have right now, and we just applied for more grants. We won't know until October if we get those. So calls for service, this is for the state troopers, calls for service that we got from MATCOM, just kind of looking in the area. I put this in here just so you guys can see this. I probably need you on this one, Sheila, again, I'm sorry, since you put the chart together.
So what the troopers did, they gave us their raw data of the types of calls from mile 53 to mile 105. Because it's where we have citizens, we also have our bus route, we also have all of that. So it's 2 years worth, and I'm sorry you can't see that there's 1 year is gray and the other's white, but and so it totals up by in the month, and then at the bottom by the year of each problem area. And then the second slide shows the problem areas. So we have like crimes against people, drugs, crimes against property, and then murdered, missing Indigenous people, and then all the other calls. And so as you saw on the previous slide, the troopers in 2020 and 2021, between mile 53 and mile 105, had 1,654 service calls in 2020, and in 2021, 1,755 service calls. They did traffic stops, they went to all these different kinds of crimes or service calls.
I just add that in there just so you guys can see kind of what's happening in your community. I didn't know if you knew that, so. All right,
Is that all?
That's mile 58. This is what they provided us, mile 58.
Not just native related?
This is for your area, so I was giving that to you guys for your area, just so you guys know. And what's happening in your community. We're actually mixed in that because they have to respond to any of our calls that become a state case. So that's been more of a burden on the troopers as well, because we can't respond to those calls. Oops. All right, amending up the PowerPoint here. So this is our priorities currently, I would say for the first year or two, trying to get up and running with the pilot program. So Human Trafficking Task Force, we want to work with FBI, we're working with My House. There are some pretty sad stories that are occurring in our community, so I don't know if you guys are even aware. Human trafficking is a little different, especially for our youth now. Luke, do you want to speak to this at all? Come on up. Luke is on the task force working with My House and talking with FBI.
Part of what's happening right now, we saw a huge surge with COVID because of quarantine. A lot of kids weren't in school, a lot of kids were online more, and predators obviously took advantage of that and started recruiting and grooming kids online. And so we're going to work a lot more as far as being proactively online. As part of the additional course that Donna was first addressing, the 6 weeks in Vpso has some online internet information that we'll be trained on to assess and to stop online trafficking and grooming and recruiting. So we have more money. I'll tell you what, I've been on multiple Zooms, because Zoom seems to be the new life for all of us. Whether it be VAWA, whether it be murder, missing Indigenous people, whether it be sex trafficking. Many of these other smaller tribes around the state have been asking and screaming for help. And so part of what this program is going to be able to do, especially because we have the funding we have and we have the court system that we have here, is going to be a lot more beneficial to where we can extend out and help these spots and fill these gaps to keep our children more safe and to be able to put habitual, or anyone in that case, in prison and address the situation immediately.
We're wrapping it up here. Okay. We have just partnered up with the Matsu Valley Drug and Endangered Children's Task Force. That's with the Palmer Police, state troopers. You've got Connect Tribe and some other groups trying to help our children in the community. We do have a huge drug problem, and we want to see if we can do the best that we can to help these children and have the resources. Drug enforcement, I think that's a huge issue. So if we're dealing with a tribal case and there's a drug-related issue, we'd like to be able to work with the State Trooper Drug Task Force and solve some of the crimes and the drugs coming into the community. I already talked about the School Resource Officer, the DARE program. We'd like to get that up and running as well. Working with the U.S. Marshals, they said that they do have a lot of issues out this way with some sex offenders not registering, and we'd like to partner up if it's something tribal related. We are asking for that state certification because if there's accidents all the way up to mile 105, if troopers can't get there, they would have to ask for an agency assist, and we'd like to be able to help with that if possible. That's how our agencies work together. If troopers need assistance and Palmer's in the area, they ask the Palmer Police Department for an agency assist. So that's just a partnership with the other law enforcement agencies. Extra patrol watch, we want to make sure we do this for our community, mainly our elders. If somebody's leaving, going on vacation, you can ask for an extra patrol watch and we'll come by your neighborhood and make sure your house is safe. Or even welfare check on the elders. We are working with the Matsu Borough Emergency Planning out for this area. You guys are more than welcome to join us on that. We would love the community to join us on the emergency planning for the Sutton, Chickaloon area. Search and rescue, that's another one. We have resources, but I think we can do better out here and work together with the search and rescue team. And then the EMT training. And then working with our youth boards. And then working with our partners with our health and social service, ICWA cases and other, we have the tribal opioid response. So when we're dealing with tribal members who need help, our health and social service has these resources. So we can try to help them not eventually go to jail. If we can help them with a misdemeanor, that's what we're hoping to do, but once it becomes a felony level, it's gotta go to the state. And then working with other tribal agencies as a training location. So that is our priority for just this year. There's a lot to do, and I think that would be it. If you want to do questions.
Can't you do all that without making any changes right now? You can do all of those priorities right now, can't you?
No, I cannot. I can't respond to the accidents, and if I have to go, if we go to a tribal member call, and it turns out to be a serious physical injury or assault or sexual abuse, we can't do anything.
Why can't you respond to a call? I can respond to a call.
I can't. So our jurisdiction's tribal members only, but once I respond to a tribal member, if it's a misdemeanor, we can take it to our tribal court. If it's over a misdemeanor, we can't do anything. So I have to wait for a trooper just like you, even though they're trained, eventually. What's that? They are, and we're just shorthanded. I was with the Trooper Drug Task Force. I love my brothers and sisters. We're really shorthanded, and then we need to figure out how to work out as a team, and that's why we're here.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Oh. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Hear me?
No, tap it.
Right now.
Just yell.
Okay, so here's. All right, there we go. The questions, if you have some questions or a speech to give, you have to come up to this microphone so everybody can hear it. Yes. So, folks that have questions, we want everybody to hear that. We want to hear the answers properly. But before we get there, I think it's important that we ask Senator Schauer to speak about the statute changes and where we're at with that and how that will transpire. Will this take place? So, Mr. Schauer, is that something you can speak to?
I'm going to talk loud. That's probably easier. You might hear this a little bit. So we've gotten a lot of angry emails in the last 2 weeks about why I support this. So I want to be clear first. I don't know if I support it or not, because I asked the question at Town Hall 2 weeks ago here. It depends on whether the community supports it or not. So just understand that. There's a lot of rumors floating around. It's one of the reasons George and I wanted to do this. So you can ask questions, find out what the real scoop is, and then make your own mind up whether you support it. I'm not asking you to, just asking you to get the information. That's why I'm here. Until 3 weeks ago, I didn't know there was a lot of the backstories, but I'm hearing them now. Okay, so just so that you understand that, regarding legislation for this, it's about a one-sentence change into the current Alaska statutes, because as Donna said, Chief Anthony, there is an authority right now for them to do that that wouldn't be under the Alaska Police Standards Council. Why that would be important, at least in my view, if you went this way, then the state would have authority to come in and look at and audit whether or not the department was doing what it was supposed to do and could pull the certification. Without that, we don't have the ability to be involved in that process. That could be dangerous too, since this appears to be happening no matter what. So there is no legislation, to be clear, because that's one of the things people were asking. How come legislation is being done we're not talking about? It doesn't exist. I sat with the Department of Public Safety Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner, and the Assistant to the Assistant Commissioner a couple weeks ago, and they pointed out where we would put this if we did it. Number one, George and I would have to file legislation, a bill, in each body, the House and the Senate, to do that. That hasn't been done. We haven't made our minds up yet on whether we want to do it, because this is part of the process, hearing from the community. If we did that, it probably would not happen until next year, because there's only about 4 weeks left of the session, right? And so it's not going to make it through both bodies anyways. So this would be a next year thing. for the 2023-2024 legislative session to get that done where you would have that authority. So from a timeline perspective, it's not going to happen this year anyways. Even if we tried to, we don't have the time to do it. And then that's what that change would say, that it's something to the effect of where you currently have federal, state, etc. They would be inserted into that where you would say, and tribal police officers, something to that effect, according to what the Department of Public Safety, the courts, and the Department of Law told me as we were talking about this. And I do apologize that they are not here. We do have one representative at the very back of the room from the executive branch. I asked for the Department of Public Safety Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Law, Courts to show up, and it's a holiday weekend and there was short notice, so they're not here. I'd hope they would be to answer questions on things like jurisdiction, comedy, not ha-ha comedy, but comedy of jurisdiction between courts, and other issues of the questions that many of you asked a few weeks ago when I was here. As far as I'm concerned, this is a process. This ain't over, and I'm just learning in the last couple of weeks a lot of the background to this. So this will happen again, at least one more time, maybe several. And there will be a meeting here, folks, at least one more time from my perspective, and you will have the appropriate leadership here to answer those questions. If we don't do that, I will do nothing, because I need to see that the community supports it, number one, and number two, that it's done correctly. So we're not there yet, just to be clear, to dispel the rumors. And for those that say, how come I support this? I don't yet, because I don't know where you stand. And I need to see that the community supports it before I can do it, okay? Just so that's clear. So there may be questions for us, and George and I can certainly answer them, but I want to give him a minute or two because he's lived here for 45 years. I live in the North Matsu, and I'd like to let George, as his hometown, have a few comments as well, then get to your questions, because I know there's going to be a bunch of them based on 2 weeks ago. George? We'll get to other questions specific to that if you have them.
Thank you, Mike. So, when we write a law, there's a lot that goes into it. First off, you have to have a need. Once you've established that there's a need, which is probably because there's a want. So now you have to also realize that there's going to be unintended consequences, there's going to be results, and there's going to be cause and effect. So we have to be able to look at every one of those options before we write a law. I want you to know that. Because you don't just write a law because you got a good idea. You have to understand that there's a lot to it. There's a lot of, there's 12 volumes of legislation. There's 500 pages, double-sided, that's 1,000 pages. In each one of those books, and on each one of those pages is about, I'd say, 20 laws, little language changes in every sentence, which is also going to come into play here. So this is a far cry from being over, like Senator Mike Shower said. The House is closed for new legislation. The Senate is still open, I believe. There's a possibility of doing a committee bill in the House. But until there's probably a committee that wants to pick this up in the last 4 weeks left of session, which I don't think is going to happen. That bill will probably never ever be written until next January. And then it has to go through the processes, and if you know the processes, government is slow. So I just want you to know that doesn't happen fast. So you're looking at maybe it'll be March next year. But either way, one of the things we have to look at is the 4 things that I mentioned before we will write any law. And we also have to take into consideration that there are native tribes all over Alaska that are not on the road system that this will affect also. So there's more to it than just Chickaloon would like to have a police department of their own, which can do whatever the law will allow them to do in the end. It's just going to happen statewide. So we have to realize that whatever we do here is going to play in all around the state. We have to make sure that it works everywhere, including here. And as Mike said, a lot of public input is going to be very important to how we can approach this. So that's why you're all here. That's why I called 6 community councils together for y'all to come here. And now what we want to do is listen. And that's what we're here for. We just want to hear what you have to say. We've heard what the officers from Chickaloon had to say, and so basically, if you have any questions, Frank's in charge. Appreciate if you keep it civil or however you want to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Back on. Okay, thank you, George. I want to reiterate that I did invite those entities that were supporting this, Department of Public Safety, Palmer Police, Chief, as well as their counsel, and that's Sue Burroughs Management. I did not hear back from those entities, so I'm assuming there's nobody here representing those folks. So with that being said, I guess we can move along to.
Bring him up, Frank, just one more thing, I'm just gonna yell it. So, you guys can hear me, right? I'm yelling, good job?
But we can't hear you.
You
Just
can
mic.
for that, all right, just briefly on this one, because this matters, so. Hello? Oh, there you go. This is an issue of trust, right? That's what I'm hearing from you guys. And I know Donna, we've known her for years, she's a good friend. I trust Donna. She wants to do it right, she's here to make a difference and wants to help. There's no doubt of that in my mind, and those of you that know her know that's the case. There's also a problem with the cult of personality, because one of the questions I've gotten, what happens when Donna leaves? Who's next? What will they do, right? I know you're asking, I've seen people shaking their heads. I have to be convinced of that too. What I'm hearing from the community is a lot of mistrust based on past things that have happened and whether or not you would trust what would happen with the police department run by the tribe moving forward. I get that. That's part of what we're here for, folks, and I need to hear from you as we do in this process, because for George and I know he feels the same way, I don't want to speak for him, if you are not convinced and we can't get to a point where you trust this, it's going to be really hard for him and I as the representatives of this overall area to move forward on this. So ask your questions, keep asking them, and get to the point whether you can trust this or not. But that's what I meant to say that, and I forgot, that I know this is an issue of trust and what's going to happen with that authority. And while I trust Donna, I know that many of you have that question. What happens next when she's gone, or the next person? So ask these questions as you're up here today, and realize again, this is not over. This is just kind of step one. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Senator Schauer. So folks, you have 3 minutes for comment or speech, whatever you would like to propose. Is there anybody who would like to step up?
Frank, I'll go.
Okay.
As you come up, if you would, please state your name so everyone knows you're speaking.
I'm Roberta Mason. I've lived in Sutton for 53 years. When I first came to Sutton, I thought everybody was really outspoken. And when my husband came home from the soap, I said, I'm not living here. I don't like the way people talk. About 53 years later, I talk just like they did. Not long before Bert Shagnoff got sick, I was at a picnic at his house. And there were about 15 of us my age talking about living in Sutton in the old days. And not one of us could remember ever having a problem in the community that was divided between native and non-native. Then we talked about Chickaloon organizing and the problems we'd seen there, and we kind of concluded that things were never going to be the same as when we grew up here, and it made us sad. One time we had a youth group. They mostly met at my house. There were 32 teens from Chickaloon and Sutton, and they met weekly. At one point, a local resident, someone we trusted, who was working for the village, presented a thought to us about a teen justice program. The village had gotten a grant for this program and they thought we might be interested. We were. A man came and talked about it at our meeting. The teens were really excited about it. They asked him to come back and tell them how they could get involved. Meantime, Chickaloon bought us some sports equipment for our group, and we used that one time, and the kids played with it, and there was a person there videoing it. After that, the equipment was never available when we went to pick it up. Then, our trusted person picked up some of our kids after school and took them to the Chickaloon office where they were interviewed and videoed. A short while later, that very professional video was played here at the school, and it contained the interviews and everything from our kids. Our parents were furious. I've heard other stories like this, but what I want to say is, I looked back in 2012, Gary and Jennifer Harrison came to introduce this program. About 3 years later, Duke Circle did it. And then in 2017, Officer Michael presented this program. I went back and looked at all of the minutes and everything, correspondence, and it could be a carbon copy of what is being said today. But each time they come back and they said, well, we didn't make it, but we're going to try again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Nelson, live here in Sutton. I'm on the Sutton Community Council. So a couple of quick questions, Donna. So you talked about priorities for this year, which would be this. You know, everything works out great. So at that time, will Chickaloon, this program, the police department, have full AST authority? Everything works out perfect. They have full AST authority. I mean, I can, whatever, yeah. I'm just taking notes.
They would have the same authority as any state police officer, if accepted under Alaska Police Standard Council.
Sure. So yes, okay. And then the sex trafficking numbers, LD, everyone agrees nobody likes perverts or child rapists. So if like, are there numbers that we could actually, you know, so like pushing this program, totally agree, and online grooming, things of that nature, are there actually numbers associated with that? Because nobody's in favor of child perverts, and like that's a whole thing. So are there numbers that are associated with that?
So is this working?
Okay, sorry. It sounds like my house has numbers. Ingrid with the federal side has numbers. On the next meeting, I can get those numbers for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so we'll get your email, so you'll get those numbers, okay? So now going on to just other things that I've heard. So I'm on the fire department here. We're working on hazmat right now. So talking to people from Butte clear to Palmer. I understand people want to police their own people. Like, I want to smack my kids. I don't want Jeremy to smack my kids. Like, I get that. There's no problem. But with this, then Chickaloon will have authority on the highway system, correct? Just passing on things.
If we have the Alaska Police Standard Council, we are state certified police officers, yes, we could do traffic stops, correct.
Yeah, traffic and fish and game.
We're not doing fish and game. I don't even know how to run a fish and game unit.
Okay. Sorry. Judas Priest. Oh, that's so much easier. That's so much. Okay, thanks. That's perfect. Thanks, Frank. And then I guess just a couple other points that have come through because, you know, the presentation you gave to our council has been sent to others. What's that? Okay, thanks. Support from like AST and Palmer is not super relevant in our minds, at least, because I think that they would support anything that will increase law and order, for lack of a better term. So I think that that's a relevant point, but not super relevant. And then my experience is that it does not take AST days to respond to incidents. And that may be different.
It does in the villages. I'm not talking here.
Okay.
And this is the program that's a pilot program for the state of Alaska.
Okay. All right. So my time's up, so that's fine. My experience is that it doesn't take that. And then the last question, and I'll be done, is that if a call happens on that, like, will the trooper respond to, and if we call AST, what would be the examples when a tribal officer would respond to a non-tribal incident?
Yeah, really good. Okay. Excellent questions. Thank you very much. We would not, if you call 911 and you go to MATCOM, we're not responding. That's the state troopers. If the state troopers are too busy and they can't come out this way, it's emergency, they can ask for an agency assist. We do not respond unless another agency asks us. Does that help you on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll speak as clear as possible. It's a Sutton firefighter, April 11th, 2019, I was injured from the city fighting construction.
A little closer to the mic, yeah.
I was a structural firefighter here, April 11th, 2019. I was injured for the rest of my life. Thank you for all the support I've received since then. It sounds more like we require a trooper post here. It sounds like people who claim themselves constantly sovereign should be paying their own and stop running hand in hand to the federal government every time they need a dime. You want to talk about your ethnicity, you want to talk about your blood supremacy and your past. Well, I'm sorry we weren't a part of it. We are a part of your future, and it's about time you realize that. There is no us and them, and if you constantly keep telling us that we were never great, then why do you keep taking? Why can't you pay? Where's your taxes? You brag to us about having no taxes. Maybe change that. Thank you.
Do you have a question for me?
Also, no questions. Pure statement.
Okay. First of all, I'm as white can be.
I don't care about your bloodline.
No, hold on here. I believe in trying to help the state of Alaska. I believe in helping all citizens in the state. And this is a program that can help, not just here. I'm not being disrespectful to you. But we have a lot of victims in the state. We have a lot of drug crimes, and we can do better. I'm not talking culture problems. I'm talking about crime in the state of Alaska. Thank you.
And this is, excuse me, this is being recorded on Irving, and we'll post it on the Sutton community's website so you can watch this later on if you'd like.
Mike Coons, just a real quickie question. When it comes down to the tribal courts and a conviction on a felony, this goes to a felony. Okay. So what you're saying then is the most the tribal can do would be a misdemeanor. Would that be federal or state prison? And two, we got a major problem with a lot of these drugs and everything else that are federal issues. So is there a potential down the line of doing this so that the convictions go to the federal prisons and save Alaska a hell of a lot of money by sending a lot of these cretins, especially the pedophiles, down to a federal prison? We never see them again.
Mike, excellent question. So I'll clarify, if it is a misdemeanor, the tribes can only do misdemeanor, there are no jails. The misdemeanors are where the judges will provide punishment where it could be go cut wood and help the elders. If it's a felony, it needs to go state, which we can't. We have to have another agency come help us with that. On the other question, you're talking about you want to see more serious crimes go federal. Once these officers are done on the federal side of the training, we are working on the BIA Special Commission where we can charge more serious crimes. Habitual offenders or drugs can go felony under Title US 18. So that is a possibility, yes.
Okay, I gotta clarify, I'm sorry. So they can only do misdemeanors now, but if they get this authority, they would be able to do federal ones, correct?
They'll be able to do federal, and this is like the new phase. So in the lower 48, the tribal agencies have BIA special commission, and they work with U.S. attorneys. This is not done here in Alaska yet. So we're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, working with Alaska Native Justice Center, that if we have somebody in a village that's a habitual sex offender, and he's been in and out of jail, it would be nice to take him to a federal facility. So those are options we are looking at, yes. Does that help out? It's not nothing set in stone, but it is in place, yes.
Now they do misdemeanors. Now they do misdemeanors, but they would be able to do felonies.
We would only be able to do felonies.
That's what I was asking.
What's that?
That's what I was asking. If this goes through, would it be federal felony and would it be federal prison versus state prison?
No, so if we, let's say we go to a call, I'm just gonna give you an example, and when we show up and we realize instead of just a disturbance, there's some sexual abuse with a minor, we can't do anything in our tribal court, even as a tribal citizen, because it's above a misdemeanor. We would have to go to a state charge, and it's not serious enough to go to the federal level. But if we found a lot of drugs there, kilos of coke or heroin or meth, we'd want to go federal with that, with the federal attorney. So you got state, you got tribal, state, federal. But you have to determine which way the case would go if you have the commission and you have the authority to do so. Matter was going federal. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. All right, now this goes back to part of it, and I don't have answers here because I'm not a lawyer and I didn't play one on TV. So what I can tell you is I got a 45-minute brief last week from the court system, the representative of the courts, and sitting with DPS and Department of Law. That's why they need to be here, and I'm a little upset they're not here today to answer these questions, which is why we're far from done. We're just getting started. But I will tell you that what was made clear to me was that the court liaison has been doing this for almost 30 years in Alaska, so she's seen a lot of this. And she said multiple governors have tried this before to make this work, and they had somebody that focused on it. There's nobody doing that right now in the current administration. We just aren't even looking at it, that's fine. But there were things like the memorandum of understanding, the memorandums of agreement, what the jurisdictional issues would be, which court would serve which person, how would we do that as a state, what authority do they fall under, when would it go federal? No answers. Because we're not even close to that phase yet, is my point. Back to why I'm telling you, I don't know where I sit on this right now, and I'm sure you don't either. I don't have answers, but you're going to get them before this moves forward. Because all the things you're asking today, we're taking it down. There are a lot more questions than answers, but there are people that have looked at this in the state before, and it has never happened for one reason or another. So I just want you to understand the process of this. This is a long way from happening, because this would have to go through the state. The legislation is a tiny piece of this, folks. Then there's regulations, and there's memorandums, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that still has to take place. So just, like I said, this is like the first meeting of many when you ask these questions. And just, so I can't answer these questions, and I don't think you're going to get them answered today, just so you know that. It wasn't, I know it was kind of quiet. This is being filmed over here by Must Read Alaska. Lauren's doing this, so this will be posted on multiple places, so you can go back and look at it if you want, or get other people involved. I just want to make sure that it was loud enough so you heard it, so you can spread this around. Okay? Yep. That's a great question. We can explore that option. I have no idea. I'm not going to tell you something I don't know. But it's something that maybe it could be an initiative. I'm not sure. I can ask.
My name is Brian Endel. I'm your true conservative candidate for Madison Borough Assembly District 1. I want to thank Senator Schauer and Representative Rausch for holding this meeting today. A few things come to mind. I think about the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Our forefathers got together and they sought God for these very documents. They put God into these documents. You can look at the readings and you can see that they read the Bible. I mean, you look at the system that they set up, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branches, the three branches of government. If you read Isaiah 33, you will see that it says, the Lord is the judge, the Lord is the lawgiver, and the Lord is the king. That's where they put Jesus into this very foundation. Now, in this time that we have here, things are backwards. Right is wrong and wrong is right. So we have issues. We look at a tribal system whose chief is Gary Harrison. He doesn't believe in the U.S. Constitution, and he doesn't believe. He believes that UN can come in here, UN intervention. So what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at a problem because we're looking at a policing system that would mirror that of the Alaska State Troopers. They would have the same power and the same authority, but yet the control would be under the chief here. You know, they look to set up a court system. They look to set up the executive branch, like which would be the troopers or the police. And then there's a king. He's the chief. You know, so in this system, it's not right. I don't agree with it. I'm not for it. You know, they're basically looking to take God out of the Constitution and put Gary in. I'm not for that.
Oh, are you guys in line? We're in line. You can get in line.
Gary Harrison, and what that guy said is not true. I've never tried to take God out of anything, and I do believe in the Creator, so I don't know what he's talking about. And I've never been racist here. As a matter of fact, we could have had a clinic here that didn't serve the whole community a long time ago, but I waited in trying to get the clinic so that it would serve all of the community. I've never pulled this race card, and I've picked that guy up hitchhiking that came up here and started to slander all of us. So I'm not a racist. I grew up with many of these people here, and you can ask them. I never came over there and says, oh, I'm an Indian, so I'm better than you. It's never happened. We're all the same. We're all under God's creatures. We ain't none of us any better than any of the other ones. And nobody's trying to put me in as whatever that guy said.
Who pays the funds? Who pays them?
Well,
Who pays them, Gary? You would pay them.
that's a good question. Where did all of the resources come from prior to you guys being
right there.
the non-indigenous people who have moved in here and taken over? Whose resources were they first? So we've given a lot of resources out so we can access these resources. Do I pay taxes? Yes, I pay taxes. So what's the difference? Besides the fact that the only one who's made the race statement here has not been me. I am indigenous, I'm also white. So I don't know what you guys are all talking about, trying to say that I'm trying to be king. It's never happened, and will never happen. And I don't run everything around like some people say. Sorry to say that, but many people have made some wrong statements here tonight. And the only thing I've ever tried to do is help this community. And most of the people who know me know that. I've never done anything wrong against this community. Now, we've gotten some bad advice in the past, but where did it come from? It came from the state. It came from the state troopers. So we asked them for advices, and the other thing is we are already a sovereign government. We're not asking anybody to be sovereign. We're not asking to take your rights. We're asking to be able to work with the community. My cousin's wife got after me to start this meeting about the meth heads. Well, I don't have any authority to do anything about the meth heads around here. So I'm not sure what people say that I'm going to do as king or whatever. So what's going to happen though is when the state and all of its people come around to understand that we're not going anywhere, we don't expect you to go anywhere, we can work together or we can have animosity. We're not going anywhere. And we offer this out to work together with you, not to come and say, oh, we want to do all of this stuff. So you guys can take it for what it's worth. I see that there's already a petition going around against us. And you don't even know all of the facts, and you listen to some of this crazy talk that's been talked today. Yeah, it's incredible.
3 minutes.
Well, then that's great. I'm glad to be corrected, and, like I said, I make mistakes, and when I make a mistake, I own up to it. So if we make a mistake, I hope that you, own up to it. And I've worked with a lot of these guys. They're really hard working. I don't care what some other people may say about some of them. For instance, Jim over there, I worked with him on the pipeline. He's a hard-working guy, you know. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, but I know he's a good man.
Time's running up.
So there's the answer. And if you guys say some more stuff that kind of isn't exactly right, I might get back up here again. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gary.
Hello, can you hear me fine? Yeah. My name is Jackie Goforth. I'm leading a recall campaign against 3 council members in Palmer. The reason why is because they were on a secret Facebook group that posted 2,000 screenshots. I have read those 2,000 screenshots, and in some of them, I'm very concerned about this overseeing the police department in Palmer. I am a resident of Palmer. I live 200 yards outside of the city limits. I do not live in Anchorage. The reason my address is in Anchorage is because I'm Jackie Ivey, the romance writer, and I have a P.O. box in Anchorage because my fans are a little strange. And I don't want them to know I live in Palmer. That's why. I am a Palmerite. I've been there for over 20-something years. And some of these screenshots that you can read for yourself were because a police officer pulled over someone and they would not mind or follow the policeman's instructions, so they brought out their taser, and the Moms for Social Justice wanted them removed. They wanted the police chief removed. They wanted police oversight of Palmer. And this feels like a roundabout way of getting police oversight of Palmer. Because some of the people on this Chickaloon Council are in the Moms for Matsu Social Justice website, or Facebook group. And if you want to read it for yourself, please go to recallpalmer3.com/photos. There are over 1,000 screenshots downloaded, and you can see for yourself what they were talking about on overseeing the police. The other problem I have with this is there was a ceremony that took place last year at Colony Days in Palmer itself. And the Chamber of Commerce, Sam something or other, I have listened to it several times. I am trying to transcribe it. It's very difficult because there's birds and somebody starts an engine. But in there he says that they acknowledge this unceded land. What does that mean to the Chickaloon tribe? What does that mean? And I also want you to know that my husband is a registered Native American from the lower 48. My granddaughter is so dark that she tells me my skin needs to be tanned. And I told her, turn your palms over, honey, because we have the same color. It's like Labradors. They're black, they're brown, they're yellow. It's the same thing. We're the same. And my most fond grandmother moment is when she was on the playground with a little blonde girl, showing her palm and saying, see, we're all the same. I am really getting annoyed at this undercurrent that's taking place. Thank you, I have 30 seconds. This undercurrent that's taking place in the valley of something happening. And my husband told me, he's the Native American, and he said, if they didn't own it before and utilize it before, they have no right to take it now. That's what he said about his culture. Thank you.
Real quick, question. So just to make, for the sake of time, let's keep things on topic. Regarding the questions regarding the tribe, let's try to keep it on topic to the police department question I had.
First of all, I think she's funny. I've listened to her before. First of all, I'm very Republican, and I just wanted to add that. So most of my department is Republican. I know we should be talking about political, but I need you to understand it's not completely that way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol Carmen, and I do live within that little zone on your map. So it really caught my attention when I saw that, and I became very concerned. I've heard a lot of stories. It's a complicated issue. I believe that Senator Shower summed it up very well when he said it's a matter of trust, and that seems to be the issue that many people have at this time. So to cut to the chase, because I like to do that, I would like to ask those of you who do live within the zone of that oval, if you know for sure you live in that zone, and you are opposed to having a police force that is under the authority of the Chickaloon tribe. If you are opposed to that, would you please just stand so we can recognize the amount of people here that would really like to not see that happen. And I'm doing this mostly for our two legislators who said they are here to know for sure how the community feels. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
President Ronald Reagan once said, the scariest thing is to hear the government say, we're from the federal government and we're here to help.
So I just learned about this yesterday. So I'm going to read something I wrote this morning.
Who are you?
I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Dustin Renner. I've lived on Soapstone Road for almost my entire life. I have 7 kids and I'm a local business owner and military veteran. I live in the United States of America and I believe in the Constitution. I fully support our current state and local law enforcement officers. I've watched the quickly increasing destruction of the country and state I grew up in. I've watched the values and belief that this country was founded upon come under full-scale attack. I've watched the censorship of conservative voices across all forms of media. I've watched the left's attacks locally and nationally on everything I hold dear and value. I want to be on record here stating that I believe enough is enough. I do not support any additional federal encroachment of any sort or any new law enforcement entities patrolling our streets, especially a federally connected force. I am 100% for supporting and helping our existing law enforcement organizations do more to help combat drugs, child trafficking, theft, and other crimes. The people in this country that care about our freedoms and have a multi-generational vision for our kids and our kids' futures need to stand up, get involved, and stop waiting for someone else to solve our problems and fix these issues. I have heard it stated by people here that are a part of this, that these things are free and won't cost anything. Where do you think the federal money comes from? The current presidential administration in charge is robbing us and our children's futures by pumping all this federal money into our country today. This is not free now and never will be. The money that you're planning to use for this today and tomorrow isn't created out of thin air and is not free. It's being taken from families all across the USA paying their federal taxes. Enough is enough. We are all blessed that we live in the U.S. and this state is not still under Russian authority. We need to come together as one. Bloodlines, the color of our skin isn't the issue. Why do we keep making it so? We're all Alaskans, we're all Americans. Yesterday is gone, and all we have now is tomorrow. Let us all let go of the past and move forward. When have you ever seen any government organization stay the same or not grow, expand, spend more money, and take away more of our rights? Even if what's proposed now sounds okay to you, by opening the door to this, where will it go from here?
Hi, my name is Pat Muth Blindberg, and I've been here since 1977, a member of this community. I raised my kids here, they went to school here, and my grandkids growing up here. And we have a lot of crime that's going on. My son gets fuel ripped off, snow machines stolen out of his yard, and I know something has to be done. I'm not quite sure where I stand. I have to hear more on the whole issue, but I felt it was important to come down because I thought some of you might not know Donna Anthony, and I thought I should say something for her. I know her, and I've known her for years. Donna's fair, she's honest, and she's a hard worker. I know things happened in the past, but I think with Donna being involved in any hiring process, she's going to make sure the right person gets it and the wrong people don't. Donna's very fair and honest, and I think everybody should consider that too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Christian. I don't know if any of you know about the road project that got canceled between mile 53 and mile 56. Oh, Gary, he said he's all for safety and everything. They're the ones that stopped that road project. It was supposed to go straight across. Now we're stuck with the same old road. That steep grade, windy curves, has bad accidents on it every year. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good speaker here, but anyway, and then we come to another issue about this tribal courts and stuff. And Gary has always been wanting his tribal driver's license, tribal registration. That's, looks to me like they're gonna give preferential treatment. So, it's just gonna be a conflict of interest. Gonna drive a big wedge between the natives and all the other folks around. That's pretty much what I gotta say. Thank you. First of all, I did not stop that project that he's talking about. I didn't stop that, so I don't know what he's talking about there. So that's a misnomer.
What do you mean? It was in, you took the state, Gary Harrison versus the state of Alaska about your driver's license.
That's a different issue. I won that issue because we have the rights to do that.
Well, if
So
you're driving
I'm sorry to tell you that.
driving on a state road or roadways up here, the Alaska law says you need Alaska state driver's license. Why should you be any different?
Because we're a sovereign tribe.
Sovereign, my ass.
Okay, folks.
Our sovereign may be limited in many areas, but we're still a sovereign tribe. I'm sorry you don't agree with it, but that's okay. And I have won that lawsuit because we do have the right to do that. So, I'm sorry you don't
Maybe
like
out in the
it.
village where you don't have access to a major highway in the state, that's fine. Have your driver's license out there.
I'm just gonna add one thing, and I just learned, in the lower 48, a lot of these tribes have their own IDs and everything else, so this isn't a new thing. But how does it look in Alaska? I do understand, don't know if they can or can't, but they do this in the lower 48.
No driver's license.
I'm sorry.
Just to answer that, I'm Tom Braun, and I'm from the human race. Donna just answered what you just said. There's a difference between reservation Indians and Indians that have their own land that are not on a reservation.
The answer is yes, there's reservations in the lower 48. We have one reservation in the state of Alaska, but they also have trust lands as well, but they're not like reservations like you see in the lower 48. And a lot.
I just wanted to get some things clear from your presentation that aren't clear to me. If you run across a felony or it becomes a felony while you're there, you say you can't do anything. I don't buy that. If you see a felony committed in your presence, I would say you should be able to arrest and detain until the other agency gets there.
That's exactly it. We cannot take them to jail. We cannot do the police report. We will have to hold the person and wait for a unit to come and deal with the case.
Right.
When we could actually do the case, send the report to the district attorney's office and work the case.
So you can detain.
Absolutely.
Okay, that clears that up. How do you determine which properties are tribal?
So, again, when you guys call 911, you guys are trooper area. When we have a call that comes into our office, the tribal citizens are calling us for the misdemeanor cases, or the district attorney in the court will call us for tribal cases that are misdemeanors. So all your 911 calls, all your law enforcement calls go to MACCOM. MACCOM was in the appropriate agency, which would be AST. If it is tribal, it will go through our phone call, it will go through the courts, and they'll send them back to us. That's how it's working right now.
As I understand it, there's a scattering of properties around that are tribal and maybe next door they're not. How do you determine the difference?
What do you want me to do with the property now?
There's a scattering of properties around that are tribal and maybe next door they're not tribal. How do you determine the difference?
Why would I be going there in the first place?
I don't know.
I'm trying to give you a scenario. My scenario that we do is in the tribal courts, tribal misdemeanors. I'm not going to somebody's property, I'm not responding to a call. The troopers are responding to the call, unless they ask for an agency assist, if it goes that route. So we're not just showing up somebody's property.
So if somebody who's not tribal asks for your assistance, you can't do it?
We cannot help them.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding what John had said earlier about the Chickaloon Bridge, I had talked to the DOT when the project was canceled this year, and basically what they said was that the tribe had said that there were artifacts and there were things out there in the ground, and so the federal dollars that are put up for the bridge were pulled because the argument went on for a couple of years back and forth, and so finally the bridge was, the project was ended. And so I would have to say, that's what we were told to the DOT, and that's why the federal dollars are pulled out, because of artifacts and things that they said they found or were showed to them, and it went on back and forth for a couple of years. So I will have to make that statement anyway, because it was brought up. The DOT. I can get his name for you.
Yay, George.
My name is Jacob Claypack. I am a Glacier View resident. A little taller. Donna, I got a question on just how many people are, how many tribal members are in the Chickaloon proposed jurisdiction and expansion? Do you have a number on that?
Sheila, do you have a number? I do not know. I know we have members throughout Anchorage, Kodiak, even in Lower 48, it's scattered.
But I'm talking specifically through the jurisdiction expansion that you're talking about.
I'm not asking for that jurisdiction. Let me make that clear. I'm not asking for a state jurisdiction expansion. That is for the tribal part. That's not a state jurisdiction. And that would be troopers responding to all those calls unless they ask for an agency assist. We're not asking to take over police department for the Sutton area, or Glacier View, or Chickaloon.
But my question is for my statement. I'm concerned about how valuable the money is and whether this is like a good case for a pilot program. Okay, so it is relevant.
So what you would want to know, and we should come back to you, would be is what are the numbers of tribes having issues in their community in the sexual assaults, the domestic violence, and the homicide? That's what this pilot program is about.
That's not my question. My question is how many people in this specific thing would the Chickaloon tribal police serve and be that they would serve in their in the expansion of authority? I guess that would be that are tribal members.
Good question. I do not know that exact answer. I do know our officers respond to Kodiak, even help in Anchorage with our tribal citizens. So wherever our tribal citizens are, we do go help out. But if there's a case that's in Eklutna, it's a Eklutna case, and if they don't have a tribal court, they can ask us for an MOU. So we're talking tribal stuff right now, not state. Okay.
I understand.
So I don't know the exact answer because I know the members are scattered throughout the state of Alaska.
Okay. I guess that leads me to the question: why is Chickaloon Tribal Council a good case for a pilot program for an increase in jurisdiction if there aren't too many tribal members that live actually in the area proposed? So that's a big problem.
Let me ask you this. So why is it fair that we can't respond to tribal calls and not deal with the case if it is a sexual assault? Why can we not finish the case? Why can we not follow up with the case?
Well, that's not...
I'm not asking for extra jurisdiction. I'm asking for authority to finish a tribal case. That's what I'm asking.
But you have the extra jurisdiction.
I don't want the extra jurisdiction. You get that automatically when you're a police officer for the state of Alaska. You have state authority for the whole state. And we stay in our area with MOU agreements. And with an MOU agreement, we would be responding to our tribal cases.
Can I just say this last? Okay. I just have a quick statement. The FBI has been political in its enforcement of the law, persecuting the political right and leaving the political left in our nation. How can we know that the federal money won't come with strings attached? I understand the Chickaloon Tribal Council actively supported the change of colony days, which seems that they would be a willing party to political enforcement of the law. Because of this, my family and I don't trust the federal government or the Chickaloon Tribal Council to uphold the law justly. Donna, LD, I've met you guys, I've worked with you guys a little bit. You have seemed semi-libertarian in the past. I don't understand with the current political climate that you would approve of this when it's not an appropriate time in many of our minds to seek federal monies for a new law enforcement program. It makes me not trust your guys' discernment and judgment.
First of all, there's no expansion of jurisdiction. All this is about how the state is going to play with us. And we're not the ones who came and divided up this land into different communities. We've been on here prior to all of the communities were here. The people who moved in are the ones who made the divisions here. We didn't make the divide. So,
and Alaska Natives Claims Act paid you guys millions of dollars for those lands. That's over said and done.
That's not true, but it
Talk
may
to
be
Ted
what you
Stevens. He passed it.
I know Ted Stevens, or I knew him, I should say, and we didn't always agree either. And what you just said isn't exactly true. There's a lot more than just a simple statement of what you made. And it's not an expansion of jurisdiction. We already have jurisdiction in even further than what you guys are seeing on the map today. And it's not a matter of how many people live here or how many people live there. If we want to get to that, we can start doing all of that stuff. But that's not conducive to working together like I've tried for a very long time. And it's all of the people who don't like that, that don't like that. So it's not me trying to do all of this stuff to you guys, which is what you're trying to get it down to. So the jurisdiction is already there. It's a matter of how the state is going to play with us. That's what it really amounts to. And obviously some people don't like it. And when it comes to money, as I already said, I pay federal taxes. I pay my taxes. So whose money is all being used? Whose resources were these in the first place? That's what a lot of people don't understand. And we've paid with the resources that come out of our lands. So that's where a lot of this money comes from in the first place. So it's not a matter of that. So thank you.
My name is Cindy Hudgens, and I'm a fourth generation Alaskan, not an Alaskan native. This feels like to me like a bamboozlement. Like the Chickaloon tribe has hired people that we may trust. It's like trickery. You say you're a sovereign nation. Well, I'm a United States citizen. So your sovereign nation has no right to police me. You take care of your own. I have not one problem with you having your Chickaloon Police Department. And you take care of your sovereign nation and leave the United States of America alone. Thank you.
So I'm kind of concerned about what opportunities are going to be given more to Native people other than non-Native people. So right now you're saying it's very for the community and there's like opportunities for everyone. But stuff like the clinic, anybody can go to, but only Native people don't have to pay for it. Non-Native people still have to pay for any health care they get there. So what kind of opportunities are Native people going to get after this that non-Native people are still going to have like, they still have to pay for this, or what benefits, are we all gonna get the same benefits for this?
I can speak to the law enforcement side. We're working on policing the tribal side. If you're asking about benefits, I'll have to let somebody answer that question. But we're trying to police the tribal issues that we have, and our hands are tied, and we only can go up to a misdemeanor. We're asking for the state part so we can continue to police for the tribal issues. But if you want to know about other resources, who would be able to answer that?
Hi everyone, I used to be the health director for Chickaloon Village Traditional Council. My name is Lisa Wade. And that's a really great question. The federally qualified community health center serves everyone. It's kind of a misnomer that Alaska Native people get free health care through there because we still have to pay for some services too. So we offer what we can, and if we could offer everything free of charge, we would want to do that because we want to help everyone. We're tied by the requirements of the federal quality or federally qualified community health center parameters that we're put under. But we do have a sliding fee scale in place. No one will ever be turned away from care there, and whenever possible, we try and help them. And it is, if you have no income, you can come there and receive dental, vision checks, behavioral health, let's see, primary care services, x-rays, there's a whole host of services. And then on top of that, our health department, whenever possible, we try and create services that serve the entire community. So for instance, we have a tribal opioid response program. That program is set up to serve everyone in the community. We don't just serve our own people. And what that means is, if you have a family member that's having substance misuse issues, you can bring them there, you can come there and get supports around that. You can get access into treatment, you can get assessments that'll help you get into treatment, and we have a network of people that can help. And that's for everyone in the community. Our Elders Lunch program is set up for everyone. We've served meals for kids, we've served meals for people that are in need. We've never charged anyone $1 for those services. We take donations, I donate. We try and set up anything we can. Our transportation service is in mind that we try and provide services to anyone. So if you live in Chickaloon or Palmer, in those areas, you can actually get a free transport to that clinic to be seen there, whether you're Alaska Native or non-Native. So there's a lot of things that we are restricted and we can't offer, but whenever we can, we try and offer those services for everyone. We want everyone to be healthy with us.
And who pays for it all? Do we have anybody?
I only get 3 minutes, but so I'm going to try to make it blunt and sweet. But a couple of things that concern me is right off the bat, I like to listen to everybody and kind of grasp what I'm saying. But you said our land, our land like it's yours. Do I own my land? I'm asking you, do I own my land?
I don't know. I don't conduct the borough on who owns what.
I do own my land as far as
That's good.
And so it's concerning when somebody that's going to be the head of this snake is saying words like our land, and I'm already feeling like you're going to be biased towards me and my just doing what I do based off of your general conversation here today. So second, when you've got an organization that is historically biased, that's historically politically driven, they've got picketing at the coal miners' ball. I mean, how more offending than to start this police force, or like they already have a police station down there in a coal town, got the biggest celebration every year is the coal miners' ball, and to think that now we're going to have 12 biased, potentially biased or futurely biased cops rolling around this community or the big picture. So that's one of the, it's just super offending to me. Of all places to start this, why Sutton? This is not Chickaloon, this is Sutton. You guys could have started a building in Chickaloon and had police and nobody would have said anything. I just don't get the expansion. The hospital was bought in 2000 out of a construction worker. The current police station was bought in 2002. It used to be the pizza place in Sutton. And I see this federal funding and these grant money coming to Sutton. You guys moving out here and offering these services. And we appreciate all that. I really do. But the second we start talking about my lands and and jurisdiction and policing me were on a whole different page. This is creating the division in me. I have no problems with any natives historically in this community. I love them all, grew up with them. But I don't like the thought of me having to go to the community in Palmer, the meetings out here, and fighting for me to have to do what I already do on my lands. I already had to fight for 2 years to operate my motocross track because of a Chickaloon tribe member putting legislation through that was one word that stopped me from being able to operate on my motocross track legally in the borough. And so it does have, I have been fighting this little greeny agenda in the background for years. And I can't trust on, I can't have any faith in the future of this head of the state, of the police force, something as powerful as a police force, to think that they're politically, not apolitical, like state troopers, I know that there's no agenda behind them. To think that there might be an agenda behind a police force is just frightening. And there's no way, it makes me shake to think that 13 Anderson kids that live in Sutton right now might be subject to 10 years from now of biases. That's it.
First of all, I've never protested the coal miners' ball. I've attended the coal miners' ball. Because I haven't recently doesn't mean that I'm out there protesting. You don't see me out there protesting much of anything. However, I will answer questions, and when you start saying my land, I've never claimed all of you people's land. I'm pretty sure that most of you have worked pretty hard and paid somebody for your land. So I'm not sure why you're saying that I'm saying my land. I am saying, however, that prior to the non-indigenous people here, it was my people's land. And there's been a big price paid for us not to have that land. We paid the price. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, except for I do know, I believe, most or all of your parents, siblings, and your grandparents. And yeah, I've never had a problem with them. So I'm not sure where some people coming around to me and saying, I'm the prejudiced one, when I'm the one who's been trying to get services for everybody in the community. Yeah, I could get services just for us if I wanted, but that isn't what I tried to do. I've tried to not have this them and us mentality here, so I'm not the one bringing it. However, I do recognize that we do have certain rights as indigenous people, and other people don't seem to recognize that. So that's just it.
Hello. Superintendent Gold says that it's been 30 years. Sorry. I have a question for Dawn. So, if we were to get pulled over for traffic tickets, you guys are going to do traffic tickets and stuff, right? Yes? No?
That would be an agreement with Sutton and the council, probably the MOU agreement, and with AST. Okay. We're asking to respond to deal with our calls from the tribal members.
Okay.
To answer that question, if the state recognizes them, they would have the authority to do that traffic.
Okay, that's my question. And so, if you were to write a traffic ticket in that situation, would we be paying the troopers? Would we be paying you?
Excellent question. Excellent question. A lot of people ask that. If we actually cited you a speeding ticket, if we did go down that path, that would be through the state. You'd be dealing with the state court, not tribal. Non-natives do not go through tribal court. We don't do traffic through the tribal side. So if we did anything through the state, everything goes through the state.
So it would be a state ticket?
It would be a state ticket. Okay. We have no control over that.
All right, that was a good question.
That was a good question.
And is there any reason why any troopers didn't show up today to support you?
We had let the commissioner, deputy commissioner, everybody's been advised.
Okay, because it would have spoke volumes, because I trust the troopers, and I don't think they want to help. I mean, I kind of like, I trust
troopers
them.
are great, you guys. There's been, obviously, retired law enforcement, I love law enforcement, they're my brothers and sisters. We are just short here in the state, and how do we work as a partnership to fill some of these gaps? We are asking really just to respond and deal with our own cases on the travel side, But if we do an MOU agreement with the troopers, if they want to do that and allow that, we can help with the accidents that are up here and stuff like that. I've got many of you already come into my office as soon as I walked in. I've only been here really 6 months or less, and about the drug issues and the meth and the problem in this community. And it breaks my heart, being in law enforcement, being in a drug task force, to tell you, I can't help you. I don't have any authority to help you guys. You have to reach out to the troopers on it.
And you keep stressing that if we don't want your help, we won't get your help. But if you get the jurisdiction, aren't you?
No, you're still troopers. So even if we get state even though we get this, okay, maybe that's the clarification. Even though we get a state certificate from Alaska Police Standard Council, you guys are still under the Alaska State Troopers. So even if we got that, when you call 911, the troopers will respond. It's not us, unless they ask for an agency assist. So we're not taking jurisdiction. Okay. Thank you, though. So if the troopers ask for an agency assist, which they've already been asking during the winter for the accidents up here, if they ask for an agency assist, we respond, we work on the traffic, take pictures of the IDs, and we send everything to the troopers so they can finish the report. That's what we were doing. Does that help out, Mike?
I think it does. What about it something else? Because I hear the concern. So what if the question is you show up, they're busy, and it's a DV?
We still can't respond to the DV unless the troopers ask us. They have to ask us. We can't just show up. Yeah. If they ask, then we'll respond like any other state certified police officer. Respond and take care of it like any other state police officer. Okay, good question. Yes, sir.
Well, you were in Sheriff's Office in Road talking. There was a mention of the federal side, what the feds would be able to do to help the tribe, and can you explain that part to me? Because I don't think that has been brought out in this meeting so we get a full grasp of either or both.
So on the federal side, and we're still working on what this looks like, so this is very new and it's just being touched upon. In the lower 48, the tribes have BIA special commission, and they have MOU agreements with the deputy sheriffs. And how that works is if there is a serious crime more than the state, and it could be like drugs, lots of drugs coming into the community, or a habitual sex offender, we can take that case federally. And there's certain crimes only federally that you're about to blow, such as robbery, sexual assault, the more serious crimes to go federal. So does that answer your question? And it's new, it's still being talked about, but that's what they do in the lower 48. And we don't go out arresting non-natives. I'll make this clear with their Title 18. We don't go out arresting non-natives unless somebody assaults a non-native. That's the only way we get involved. It's got to have a native connection to it to do the federal side. Yes, ma'am.
When you say native, do you mean just tribal members or any native?
Any Alaska Native, Indian Native, any Native person, even from the lower 48, this is a U.S. statute. So if a crime is committed against a non-Native person, then we would have a jurisdiction to work that case. But if it's non-Native on non-Native, we have no jurisdiction. So it's tribal related.
Okay, so
Tribal related.
If there's a Native involved, whether they're part of the tribal council.
Suspect or victim, yeah.
Okay.
But we can't go non-Native. We have no authority.
There's another question for that as well.
Yes.
And I apologize if all this is rabbit hole. If you take that and you were to get involved, because we're just saying non-native and native, we had this issue, it's federal, where do they go in the courts?
That's federal. That's a federal court that goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's not been set up here yet, but that's what they do in the lower 48. If there's a case that's federal with a Native involvement, suspect or victim, it goes to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they'll go to federal prison.
Who pays to defend a cop if there's a jurisdiction dispute?
I couldn't consider it.
Would the tribe pay for the legal side of the defense?
Just like when I was in the drug task force, I arrested somebody federally, the federal government deals with it. I have no idea where the funding comes from on that. That's the federal side. It would be the same thing. If it's the state, it's through the state program. Just like Palmer or Wasilla arrests somebody, we take them to jail, the state deals with it. It'd be the same thing.
Why do we judge everything by what they
like it.
Let's not keep repeating the same reel over and over.
So here's the issue and why we look at this. With the crime that we have in the villages, and even here that we are dealing with, even with Chickaloon and other tribes that we're helping with, we have a serious crime issue that we have to work and solve. I'm not asking to take jurisdiction over non-natives. I'm asking for help so we can finish these cases and do a better service to the state. And not just reinventing the wheel, we can do better in Alaska for our victims. I know we can. And this is why I'm here taking this meeting, because I know we can do better.
But it would help people who are more on the ground than the desk copies who are love the words. All for this show.
And I hear somebody said trooper post. We're shedding trooper posts down. We shed Telkina trooper posts down. I hear you. We need more law enforcement. It'd be great if we had more troopers here. But I'm not asking to take, I'm trying to make this very clear. I'm not asking to take jurisdiction over non-white people. I'm asking for jurisdiction so we can work these cases properly on the tribal side. But yes, the state certification comes with that. And that's where we would not get involved unless we were asked by the agency in that area to assist with that call as any other state agency would do.
No, we've got a few people waiting to talk.
Okay.
Yeah, let's stay on track. It's easy to get off track. So, you have some questions?
Beth Walski from Glacier View. That it kind of leads into my question is, you know, you keep saying you want to focus on just the tribal issues. So why do you need to be into the state portion of that? I mean, why do you need the state jurisdiction for that? And why can't we just, instead of writing legislation to get approval through the state, so that, because you keep saying, we just want to focus on the tribal, but we will step in and do state stuff if we're asked. What, can we just draw the line there and just make this program to improve the VPSOs in the villages? And that's my other question, is that why is, and it's been asked several times, but it's not been answered to my understanding, well, not understanding, but to the answers that I want. But why Sutton? I mean, we have problems in a lot of other villages, and those villages have boundaries. Sutton does not have a boundary. I mean, you're talking Sutton from mile 53 to 105. 105 is Glacier View. Yes, we're technically considered Sutton if you go by the postal zip codes, but we don't even have a lot of Chickaloon people out in Glacier View. And you know, you popped up data based on mile 53 to 105, but you know, so why can you not just focus your intentions on improving the VPSO and getting the tribal governments or the tribal police the authority to handle situations within the tribal government without overstepping that boundary into just regular government policing? Because I think that's the big thing, is that people are worried about government overreach in this situation.
Good question. So we got a lot of questions, so let's make sure I answer some. Why do we not do this VPSO program? I'm going to be very black and white. I do not believe that program is a successful program. In addition, the VPSO program is with the 10 villages involved, and they're putting money into it, and the troopers put money into it. And you've got them, you got corporations oversight. We're not a corporation. So why would I go that route? Plus, by the way we're doing this, we can go to federal flexi training, and that's 16 weeks of training. The VPSO doesn't do a full academy. Some of them carry guns, some don't carry guns, some don't do a complete background check. We're doing more and above that. And then, what was the other questions you had?
Well, I mean, why not just improve that program instead of...
That program's, I think we can do better than that program by far. And the other question is, why here? Well, when I walked in, I thought they had everything, but I'm here. And since I've been here, I start looking at the issues we have in the state, and since they're already federally state certified, or federally recognized, why not start here? Nobody else has this. This is a new program. Can we make this program a better program and help some of these other tribes along with here? We have tribal issues here. We have tribal members here, not just Chickaloon members. We have other tribes in this community that we help. So it's not just Chickaloon members. So why should I go to a VPSO program that's less trained, not completely fully background, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful on the VPSO program, but we can do better than that here in the state. And why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing that?
So my last question is, you talk about the fact that your program reaches farther, or that the tribal program reaches far. How far exactly can you go to help other tribal members?
All over the state, tribally.
And is that just you guys, or is that a state program that's already in effect, or?
We are the first to
is
do.
that just this pilot program?
It's a pilot program. So what happens is, on the court side, we have tribes that will reach out to us, do an MOU agreement. They don't have a tribal court, or they don't have a police department, and we can come in with an agreement to come help them. Just like you would with the state troopers, with another agency. It's just MOU agreements helping another tribal agency.
And I think that's where people are having the issue, is that you keep talking about wanting to help the state troopers or the police or something, and then you're crossing that tribal line.
I'm not, no, not necessarily. I'm asking one, we can only do misdemeanors, okay? So if I have anything more than misdemeanor, I now have to wait for a state trooper, even though we're highly trained and skilled by the time we're done with this pilot program. Why can they not finish the
Right, but you can still pull over a regular person, and like.
Is that the concern, that you're worried about us doing traffic stops? Is that the concern?
That seems like the concern here.
It seems like,
yeah.
We could do an agreement where we don't do traffic stops here. So if there's an accident, you'll still wait for the troopers. I have no problem with that. We are asking to work these cases and do a good job on these cases, so we don't have all these victims getting re-victimized and putting criminals in jail and doing a good case for the state of Alaska, for our victims. It's not just about you guys, it's about the victims in the state. And I know you guys are angry. Maybe this is the worst place to probably start this pilot program.
I don't want to be a victim.
It is, and I agree with you, but we're here. We're here. So how do we help the rest of the state?
I'm up right here.
3 minutes too.
That's okay, it's time for someone else.
Okay. Yeah, and remember, folks, once police powers are granted in the state of Alaska, you don't need permission to police. So,
They're going to do half of it.
once that happens, you do not need permission to police. A Palmer police officer can pull you over anywhere he wants in the state of Alaska and enforce the laws without permission.
Hello, my name is Sharon Aubrey. My husband, Michael Aubrey, just lost his brother this week, so he's not able to be here. Donna, you seem like a really nice lady.
Yeah.
Most people who know my husband know he's an amazing man. He's an honorable man. Most of them may not know, unfortunately, Michael is responsible for the fact that your department exists. Over 30 years ago, my husband was the man who set up the Chickaloon Police Officer Department, and he was the first peace officer there. The goal was to manage and police Chickaloon's lands. That made total sense. Unfortunately, like Senator Showers mentioned, this does become an issue of trust, because while you obviously are a nice woman and qualified, who comes after you is important. The people who came after my husband did not do their jobs correctly, as a lot of these people have probably negatively experienced. Unfortunately, my family was victimized by Chickaloon tribal people, and one of my coworkers, I hear you talking about sexual assault, claimed to have been sexually assaulted. She was a person who was a Native American from a lower 48 tribe. She was familiar with the tribal police situation on a reservation, which obviously Chickaloon did not, and currently does not have those type of authorities. But ignorantly, she came to seek help. Instead of receiving help, instead of receiving direction to report to the troopers, evidence was lost, intentionally destroyed, and in the end, there was no justice for my coworker. Myself was fired in speaking up and saying how they destroyed and some of the evidence that I had witnessed go into medical records files. So as a person who, our family has loved Gary and the village, and Mike gave 50 years to them, without any hesitation, being completely betrayed, witnessing it time and time again go bad, we have great trust issues. I think that some of those trust issues could be resolved if the village would take responsibility for mismanaging situations like ours, situations like the gentleman who was a pedophile or had problems, that was a previous officer. If there was some acknowledgement and apologies, it would go a long way.
First of all, thank you for speaking, and thank you for sharing that. I wasn't here for that, but I think the biggest issue, and what I've heard since I've been here and walked in, is the lack of training, evidence, doing a proper case. This is why these guys have to go through a lot of training, and this is why we're looking at this pilot program and the training to do that so it never happens again, because I'm really big on the victims. I mean, that's me. And when it comes to the Justice Department, I do run the Justice Department, and I'm trying to do it the same way when I was with Palmer Police and the state troopers. So we would do differently, but training. They can't just go out there and take these calls unless they have the training. And the FTO program is important. This is where the officers partner up with the other agencies and learn how to work these cases, how to work evidence, etc. I don't think that was ever done here before.
I do know what you're talking about. And what you're talking about was a pilot program, and that was turned over to the police, but the lady in question didn't go to the police. We, as third parties, cannot go to the police. And they just say, well, that's hearsay, because we did. And the pilot program was then terminated because of that incident. And everyone in that pilot program was terminated. So there's not, so what you're saying is partially true, but not all true. And some people didn't want to terminate some of them, but I'm the one who said, no, this ain't gonna happen. So I terminated the program.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Please.
Because I happen to know that she and I both went to the troopers and the FBI regarding her case, and we went jointly. Unfortunately, at that time, and Gary, you know, I acknowledge the fact that you have your sovereign government over your people and your lands, and I have no problem with that. Unfortunately, this may affect the justice issue, and that is because you are a sovereign government, when a horrible action like that has been mismanaged or misoccurred, there is no way for U.S. citizens to really hold those people accountable without getting permission from Congress to apparently sue the tribe who was over that. So in these cases, with you guys not using the corporation that Chickaloon does have and going through the tribal government themselves, you would still be operating these employees underneath your tribal sovereignty status. So if there is some horrible conflict, if there is another bad situation that does occur, there isn't any reparations for us. We can't sue unless we go to the Congress and then get their permission and use our tax dollars to come against us to hold people accountable. Because that is what happened to that young lady. I know for a fact, because I was with her through that entire process, there was no accountability for what those people did under your pilot program. This might be a nice pilot program. You say we have authority through the feds, you're going to be underneath them. But again, if things go bad in Palmer, I can sue Palmer. If things go bad at the state, I can kind of sue the state. If things go bad with Chickaloon, I have to sue the federal government. Is that what's going to happen with this pilot program too?
I have no idea, but I can tell you. The case that you're talking about was turned over to the state, so I'm not sure why you're trying to say that it wasn't. It was turned over to them. What they do after that is not up to us. It's up to them. So you need to go ask them why they didn't follow the case.
The Chickaloon Police Department had tampered with all the witnesses and had mishandled the information that they could not then pursue a case against the victimizer, or the person who committed the crime in that case.
That's
because
not
it had
true.
been tainted. That is what I was told
That's
by
not
the
true.
troopers.
That's not true.
Okay, well then I guess.
That's what he says about everything.
Wouldn't be the first time.
First of all, I do want to thank her for her story. Just to put a little more on there, I don't know the answer, but I do know if we have the Alaska Police Standard Council, and then they start the Federal Alaska Tribal Police Association, we would be investigated, our stuff would be taken, our certifications would be taken, but the lawsuit part, I do not know. That's a good question.
Hello, my name is Dustin Dunlap, Drew up here. My question is for the chief, and I really would like to know how it is your family members created a lot of this problem with the drugs in this town. 58 Mile Junkyard is your cousin's property. How is it that we're dealing with this problem and getting federal funding to deal with your family's issues?
Well, to tell you the truth, I would like to deal with that as well. But as you have heard, we don't have the rights to go in there and do that.
Of your people, your cousin, your
Is it a
family,
federal?
your people?
Is it going to be federal?
You have turned a blind eye to this for so long, and that's why this town has had all the bullcrap we deal with has came from 58 Mile. Has it not? People here, do you agree?
I live next to it.
Everybody
I have to
has put
suffer
up with
next
this
to
for
it.
years and years, and you turn a blind eye and then turn around and get grant writers to write a grant to get money to deal with the problem that your family created. How about you deal with the problem and not create all this other crap you're doing? That's all I gotta say.
Hoi.
So you just told me we have a drug problem here. I have no authority to do anything with this drug problem. I have no state, no federal permission. All we have is tribal. I have no authority to walk on this property, work a case. That's state troopers. We have misdemeanors. That's more than a misdemeanor. We have no jails. We can only do misdemeanors, folks. Oh yeah, we'd be all over it. I'd be working with the state troopers. We'd work a drug case.
So this is a cultural issue.
We could if we had the federal authority and if we had state, and we would partner up with the state troopers to work that case. That's how I worked when I was in the drug unit, folks. That's a large case there. That case, I love 58 Mile, but I don't have the authority to do it.
I gotta get up there and say something to John.
Are you guys in line? Or are you just saying?
No, we're the rooters.
Hello, my name is Irving. Unfortunately, I'm not originally from here in Sutton. I'm from Long Island, New York. And we've had small little village police officers and stations. And there was one called Greenport Village Police in New York State that was so corrupt they had to shut it down. What, being so small, what kind of checks and balances are you gonna have?
For law enforcement or just for the whole tribe?
For the law enforcement force.
Oh, well, if I'm there, I'm doing audits, everything else, and well, they've had 18 clean audits. I don't know if you guys know that. So that was important, but I did take this position.
And then my second question is, once your federal funding stops, who's paying for it? Is it gonna come out of our our property taxes?
But you're dealing with the state troopers. I'm not taking over your area.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, I'm a havoc. The name fits. So I don't really see how any of this can be solved with the trooper station of our own. I don't think that turning a blind eye to cultural issues over the past however decades has led to really positive results. And I don't think aiming a gun at it is going to help. I also see a lot of the infrastructure and the things that are brought in, again with federal money, yet we're supposed to be happy about it. See, you can use it too. Thank you, but we can do on our own. Don't need federal money every time we need something. Okay. It's something else, but My injury makes my brain not work so well. Now, as far as, that was another thing. Logical fallacies being used. You say this is about the victims. If this was about the victims, then everybody would be tried under the same court, under the same flag, under the same laws, instead of a division. Also, you say that the troopers are going to be there for an accident. I'm looking around at the faces of people who I very well know have rescue tech certificates, and like me, have been on the side of the road cutting people out of vehicles. It's not the troopers doing that. It's us. So, it is about safety, but don't pretend the troopers are doing more than they're doing. They do a good job, and we could use a station over there. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking, and I understand your frustration. Folks, if they could have a trooper station out here, they would. We don't have the manpower. And to our first responders responding to the accidents, you guys are our heroes. We show up, we hold the scene, we hold the traffic, we make sure nobody hits you as you're doing the rescue. We're not the ones going in and rescue. Sometimes we might be the first one on scene, waiting for rescue to show up. So I'll make sure you understand that we show up, we'll hold the scene. Once the person's extracted from a vehicle, then we'll take over, take photos, do the report, and then if there's a report that needs to go to the DAs, that's what we do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marla Mason. I'm actually just reading something from Rocky Dolphy. She couldn't make it here. I haven't read this, so if I stumble. Hello, this is from Roxanne Q. Dolphy. A lot of you know me as Rocky. I'm sorry I was not able to be here, but I do belong to a different Native corporation and have meetings in another state today. I have a few things I would like to say to Chickaloon getting a police force here in our town of Sutton. Just to go back a few years, my husband had passed away, and not long after that my mother passed, and I brought some of her belongings from her home, but was not able to go through them because of the pain of losing her. I kept them boxed up and thought I would go through them at a later date. But it was not long my brother Bill passed, so I had to go attend with that loss. I had someone say they would watch my two boys at home while I attended. While I was gone, they went through my mother's stuff, stole a lot of her jewelry and things, as well as my husband's stereo equipment. I had it all on security cameras. I called the Chickaloon police for help, as well as the state troopers, and told them I have it on tape, and the state troopers never came, but did call a month later to see if I was able to get any of her stuff back. I did with no help to them, but I had to buy the stuff back from the people they sold them to. As for Chickaloon, they came to my house and sat with me and saw the video, and I told them who they were, but it was someone that was connected to Chickaloon and dropped me like a hot potato. I never heard from them again. So it makes me wonder what will they do if it was one of their people. They will do it again to somebody else and not do their due diligence as law members of this community. Also, not long ago, I heard there was a stabbing, pencil in the neck in their school by another student to one of their students, which was brushed under the carpet, was asked by the parent to not press charges and bring attention to their school. I believe they could not handle the land and people they have now, let alone think they can help Sutton. We take care of each other here and handle it as friends and neighbors do. We are a close-knit, big family here in Sutton and do not need Chickaloon cops here. We take care of each other when help is needed, and that's why I love this town of Sutton. And I just did have one thing to say. Obviously, there's a lot of division. It's clearly not going to be fixed today, but I acknowledge the pain of you guys losing your land years ago. You said earlier, Gary, that, you know, you weren't here then when that happened. Neither were most of us. We do have to get past that, but you're the one that keeps bringing up that somehow something horrible happened a long time ago, and we know that, but you're not past it either, so.
And I just want to thank you for a situation I can talk about. I'm not here for the past. I can't fix the past, but I can try to work towards the future. But she just gave a scenario of if you have Chickaloon tribe responding to a call and they walk in, and it's not a misdemeanor, we can't do anything. It's got to be given to the troopers again. It's not in our control.
The trooper numbers that this is on is, right now we're down 8 and we're asking for 10. So there's also the desire on the west side, because I have districts on the west side and then the east, and the goal, have about 3/4 of it paramedics. And they're trying to get funding to reopen the one back on the west district I have, which is out towards Pascalpina, and the one up here. I will ask the question. I know George will as well about a station. I have no idea if that's something they're even looking at right now, but I do know that we're down 8 for the area, and the size of the district they patrol up here is like half the size of West Virginia, and I think on an average shift we have 6 or 7 troopers patrolling that. That's a large area for that amount of troopers, so just be aware. I don't know what their plan is, but I will ask, and we'll get that answer back to you, so at least you know what their plan is. We'll see what we can do about more, because I haven't asked that question. And then the last thing for the gal, a few people back that asked about where are the troopers today, she might have missed what I said early on. They were asked, but it is a holiday weekend. It was about a week and a half request. They didn't have much time. I know many of them were already planning on being gone. So I don't want to throw the troopers under the bus by saying they're hiding and not being here for the Department of Law. And we didn't give them much notice for this. You will have another meeting or more, and they will be here because I'm going to make sure they're going to be here, and I'll go right to the governor and ask them if I need to. So just understand that. You'll get more answers to make your own decision of, and that will include the Department of Law, which is going to be a key part of this, because if this does happen and there's a MOA, a Memorandum of Understanding or agreements, they will be a part of, they will have to write it before it can happen. So just wanted to fill it in because I keep hearing those questions pop up.
Hi, my name is Mary and I live here in Sutton. My biggest question today would be regarding the fact that you keep saying that really what you want is authority to deal with felonies within the tribe itself. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, so as a federally recognized tribe, this is what I found on the BIA website. It basically says the American Indians or Alaskan Native tribal entities that are recognized, and they are listed on the BIA website, of course. They are recognized as having a government-to-government relationship with the United States with responsibilities, powers, limitations, and obligations attached to that designation, and you are eligible for funding and services from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Furthermore, federally recognized tribes are recognized as possessing certain inherent rights of self-government, and they are entitled to receive certain federal benefits, services, and protection. And then in another area, basically it says that the federally recognized tribes are not under state authority, which is absolutely correct, as Gary Harrison has many times fought for his rights to, with the building permits, he ignores the fire marshal, and he's absolutely correct. He is not under state authority, but as an entity that is not under state authority, my biggest concern is that now he's asking to be given authority by the state, and he's not even under state authority. Why can't you go straight to the federal government to get authority over your own tribe to deal with felonies? Why do we have to, on the state level, give the tribe authority over an entire community?
Yeah, you want me to answer? Good question. So as I was doing the research, like I said, if we go ahead and we detain somebody federally, it's going to be a serious felony level for the federal side. There's that gap. Not every case that we deal with should go to federal court. Federal court is pretty serious. We've got people that really should just go into the state court. Right now we just call the troopers. But now since I don't have the troopers, you're just saying take them to federal court. That's what you want me to do?
No, I'm suggesting why don't you get authority from the federal government to govern your own people?
Okay, but I still have to have the state of Alaska.
Why?
Where am I going to put? Where are we putting prisoners?
You have a nice building, put a cell in it, I don't know.
No, it doesn't work like that. That's not right. That's not safe. There's got to still be a due process. There's got to be the government. And here in Alaska, all we have is the state or we have the federal side.
But you don't really have the state, because Gary Harrison and the entire tribe is not under state authority in any way.
But do we not share concurrent jurisdiction?
I'm sorry?
Do we not share a concurrent jurisdiction in the state with state and federal tribes?
I don't know.
We
If
do.
you do, okay, can you tell me where we would find the documentation?
You can Google that, and that's where I wish the legal department was here to explain that some more. Because I know we have concurrent jurisdiction with state and federal.
Okay.
But that's the big question even Mike brought up. What does that look like? What is concurrent jurisdiction with state and tribe? How do we share that jurisdiction? So that is the big question that you're asking, and nobody seems to have the answer. But you're right on. You're right on there. So.
My name is Eric Mons, I grew up here in Sutton. You see this program has support from AST, Mar Police, Department of Justice, other entities. In your opinion, why do you think they aren't here today? And I don't think the excuse of short notice, the holiday weekend is valid because we're all here.
Good point, thank you.
Test, okay. Don't know that answer, but we're at the beginning of the phase. We're not out there running to go do anything, but we're at the beginning phases. This is why we just sat down. Mike, would you like to say why they're not here?
I think he already spoke on it. I just want to hear from you.
Okay, I mean, somebody else, I asked them, brother, and they will be here. At some point, you're gonna have them standing in front of you to answer those questions. I don't know what they'll say. I don't know what the position is. I asked, I'm taking them at face value when they said, hey, we already had plans Easter weekend, the commissioner's not here, fine. But I'm not done. So just understand that, and I'm not happy that they're not here. We have one representative from the executive branch in this room right now. That's not enough. And the people that would write the MOA, or MOUs, the people that would answer questions about jurisdiction, they're not here right now. I've got more questions than I've got answers. And the more we do, the more questions I end up having as the day goes on. So we're far from done. And whether or not I can support this, I have no idea right now. So I'm not trying to push that answer away. I'm saying I don't know why, other than I'll take on face value why they're not here. Now your question goes back to Donna. I'll give her the microphone back for what her thoughts may be. That's the answer I got.
He did a great job explaining that, like I said.
I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. And I want to add to the other lady's question, if we did detain somebody federally, we don't have a facility here. We have to go to the Anchorage jail, and then the feds would have to take the case from Anchorage. I think that's the process it would be, but nobody really knows that. It's still in the beginning phase.
And what would be wrong with that? Like, why is that negative?
So do you think it's fair if a non-native person assaulted a native person, because I don't have a state charge, I'm going to charge him federally, he's going to do more time? Is that fair? Or should I actually probably maybe go state? We normally use the federal stuff on the more serious offenses. So I'm skipping the state one. Really, we could put them in state jail. They'll do a couple of years, but if I go federal, they'll do all the years, more years. So is that fair to name a non-native person who did something to a native person?
Well, as a non-criminal, I assume that if people are going to commit a crime, they should expect to pay penalties.
If you're good with us taking non-native people straight to federal jail, I don't think that's good.
Well, I mean, I think people commit crimes, understand that there's penalties.
You would think.
It just sounds like what you're describing is a negative byproduct of being sovereign from the state, is what that sounds like.
Yeah, and like I said, yeah, and like that's why, I mean, really we're asking for us to be able to deal with a situation that if it's not a misdemeanor, it really shouldn't go federal. This is where the state would step in and help with some of the non-native issues, because we do have non-native white people, Hispanic, married, and it should go state. I don't think it should go federal every time.
Hello, my name is Mike Pearson. I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours, so I thought I'd come up and say something, because why else would I be here? But anyway, this is about the 3rd or 4th meeting I've been to for police, and they've all been majestic failures. And some of the things I've heard here tonight about people getting picked on, and you know, the rape, the porn, whatever they're all talking about. Is there any way that the Chickaloonies could put up a $100 million bond? So if you people, the police department, do something that's not appropriate, people can have some kind of resource. Go back and sue you and to get, you know, take the money out of your bond.
Yeah.
And second of all, we got 2 politicians here. We got the best turnout I've seen since the coal miners' ball. And I would think that they probably got a pretty good idea that 99% of us are against the police department. Chickaloon tribes, you know, there's a lot of good people on it, honestly, but there's some really bad apples that learn for the rest of them, and they know who they are. But for the most part, I think the Chickaloon tribe tries to do a fair job, but there's a few of them there that really ruin it for the rest of them. But that's my issues. Put a bond up. If you want us to have a police department, let us be able to have some kind of recourse. From what I've been listening to you say, there's no recourse for us. We're totally screwed.
I never said that because I really don't know. So I think you guys have good questions. These are things that have been talked about. Like I said, this is a great meeting, great question. I've been here maybe 5-6 months, and I appreciate the meeting. I'm trying to answer the questions the best that I can, and that's right here.
Hi everyone. My name is Todd Smolden, and I work for the governor in the Matsu. I've met some of you before, I'm sure. And I just wanted to let you know that I am here and I have some cards. So if you have some questions related to some of these jurisdictional issues and things like that, I'll try to connect you with people who can answer those. I guess I do want to remind everyone that we're very early in the process here. We're talking about a statute change that won't even probably be reviewed by the legislature until next session because there's no legislation to change that statute filed yet. So we're very early in the process. I do understand the angst. I'm familiar with some of the past issues associated with law enforcement in the area, and clearly there is a level of trust that needs to be worked out here. So, but we are very early in the process, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. Though, also have Kim Koval from the governor's office who works with DPS as a policy advisor, and then Shannon is with us also. She's communications in our communications office. So we're happy to talk with you afterwards if you have any questions. Thanks.
If folks have questions during the meeting, is it okay for them to answer them? Or is that going to be off record for Richard?
Oh, well, sure. I don't know if I'll be able to answer.
We didn't realize there was representation here. So some folks may want to ask some questions. Just while we're on tape.
I probably won't have very many answers because we're very early in the process. So, and I can't speak for DPS. I can't speak for law. I mean, I could potentially answer a question that you might have for the governor's office, but I'm not. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. I just, because we're so early in the process, I'm not sure what I'd be able to answer at this time. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Claudia Dolphy. Many of you in here know me. I was kind of your mom at the school for all your kids for 23 years. I actually left employment here in 2003 and went to work for the tribe. Had a lot of fun, a lot of great programs. There's good things that can happen, but I can tell you this isn't one of them. What I would like to find out is if it's true that what happens here will affect 200 some other tribes around the state. What in the hell are we doing? There is so few population here in this area to try and change everything else around the state. Not good, and I don't think anybody's going to agree with that. So I came on board shortly after you had Sharon Aubrey share her story. I've actually had family members now who have been harassed from Chickaloon Tribal Police Department. And I can just tell you that more than likely this is not going to end well. It's not. How many of you in here, for example, have had to call the police? Okay. My husband and I, he's been here 71 years. I asked him before I walked out the door, how many times did you need the police? He said 0. I called one time to find out what was going on down on the river where I live because of all this shooting that was going on. Turns out it was innocent. The guy set up a target and he was blasting away. It's DNR land and he has every right to do that. So when you see that show of hands, it makes you wonder, how come we need this kind of money dumped into this neighborhood for 5 calls. Thank you.
I'm going to say that's incorrect already, because we're already dealing with more calls than that. You have a lot of tribal citizens who are afraid to be here, knowing that you guys are very angry, and we're here to try to change that. So we do have more calls than that.
So are those calls, felony related then? The tribal calls?
They're tribal
All
related.
the calls you're referring to are felony related?
No, they are tribal for the domestics, DV, protection orders. Those are those calls. Those are misdemeanors.
Within your own organization?
Well, there's some that go to the state though too. If we walk into something that turns out to be more, we have to hand it over to the state.
Chmielewski, recently elected Community Council President, Glacier View. Hi, Gary. I hope you fired your campaign manager or the advertising manager, because this was sprung on our community 2 weeks ago at the town hall. And you've stated you've worked on it for a couple of years and getting grants, and maybe I misunderstood that, but you do.
4 or 5 months.
Okay, so you do have one officer in training right now, correct? Okay, so
They just left 2 weeks ago.
most of the calls I'm getting up there, it wouldn't matter if it was tribal or federal or state or county or borough. Everybody, any enlargement of government, most of the calls I've gotten up there have been against the expansion of authority. Just to pre-warn you of what may come from Glacier View. I'm sure that this next meeting there'll be some resolution made. My question is, you're going to go statewide. Have you started an advertising campaign for the villages? Because I travel to a lot of villages twice a year, and they're not real receptive of any authority figures. And you may want to think about that. I don't know if you've started promoting it in the villages. And I do have one question for Mike Schauer, and that is, if the statute was changed to allow private police forces, would that mean that, for instance, Glacier View Community could start its own private police force?
I have no idea, but I'll find out. I'll ask.
Thank you.
Well, I am. You try to get into some of my cabinets. You know, I don't know. Good afternoon, my name is Marcy Hawkins. I've been out here for a little while, not as long as most of you. I have called the state troopers on 2 occasions. It was because we had things stolen. One right out of a shed of a deceased person. And usually you got a number and you said good luck. So that has happened, and by the way, one of the persons was injured. May she rest in peace. I've had over the years troopers go by my house after my daughter called and said at the age of 14, guns, dogs, men, because she was very upset. And we had dogs in our yard taking out a chicken coop, and some of them were trying to charge us. Being an idiot, I locked my keys in the car, so we couldn't get in the house. But, you know, when the trooper goes by going, oh, that's it, yeah, not happy. We've eventually got an apology from the city of Wasilla, who didn't realize what was going on, but I would assume that if a teenage girl was calling, yelling for guns, men, something, you might want to respond. Obviously, the problem that I had been wanting to address somebody about, you guys can't handle. Darn. But the first and foremost thing, I would like to say thank you, or, in English area, Ayana. I hope I said that right. Because we are on formerly indigenous land.
And if you want to know why there's no reservations up here, maybe you should go down to the lower 48 and see what kind of reservations they have. They wanted to do it different up here. It may not work, it may work. We don't know, but that is called your federal government. I'm short, but I'm not that short. I've heard the same question asked over and over and over, and I thank you so much for your patience. You guys would make some very good early Head Start educators, because that's one of the big things is patience. And that's why I usually don't like to be around adults too much, because they don't seem to have any. And I thought, sorry. But when we come back together again with more people who should have the answers, ladies and gentlemen, let's be polite. Is that so hard to ask? We all had families that tried to teach us manners, and I've not seen too many good manners. I have seen manners, but interrupting people, being rude. So once again, thank you. Oh, and don't forget to learn your history.
I got a quick question for you guys. It seems like a lot of the community is not behind you guys gaining jurisdiction over non-natives, but is there a way to get the jurisdiction you need to over natives without bridging that gap between natives and non-natives? I think that's people could get behind it and maybe build trust over a couple of years and then maybe work into that service if we felt the trust started to get built. But right now, with the history, and I just don't see it flying, right? And so to get you guys to be able to do something and not have your hands tied against some of the issues that are currently existing, is there a way to create the legislation where it actually gets you jurisdiction over natives but not over non-natives in this land?
Andy, that is an excellent question. Probably one of the best questions of the night. I don't know. I don't know if the state really is. That's a good question. That is a very good question, because I understand nobody wants to be placed by the tribal, but the tribal wants to be able to deal with some of the issues. I don't know if the state can do something like that, but that was a great question.
I will add, here's when I had the folks in the office and we were discussing this, George was there, and a lot of I could see even on their minds they were chewing on some of this because they pulled out the statute book and looked at it and said that's where it would go. When you make legislation, there's two parts. There's intent language, which is just about worthless most times. It just says, oh, this is what we mean, but nobody has to follow it. It's not codified. Codified means actual law, and they have to follow it. That's the codified law. That would be the next part of it. You can put into the language that intent or the codification of that intent to say who it would apply to. So that's why Donna was looking at me, and I'm over there going, I don't know, maybe that's something that can be done, I don't know, but that's part of the question I will bring to the Department of Law, who would write this, how this would work for the state, and ask them if that's something, then we'll go check on the constitutional side, because it has to pass constitutional muster through the courts, what they would say, and ask them if that would, because there's, I think it's called dual protection, there's some legal term to that, about how it would apply to different people and whether or not that would pass a constitutional test. That is a great question. She's right. It's one of the better ones tonight to be able to do that. I've been sitting here chewing on how we can pull this apart, that it might still work with support, or it doesn't. So be it. But I will find that out for the next meeting that we have and get that one, because maybe there is a way to do that that separates it and draws that theoretical line.
Yeah, thank you. And that is a good question, but yes, Mike is right. We can separate things out in law. AS, that's Alaska Statute 18.64.298, which is basically the definition of a police officer would need to be amended to add a new paragraph defining tribal police officer and how that interacts. One of the things that we're faced with here is City of Palmer has a police department. Wasilla City has a police department. So you're building a police department. It's kind of, if you look at the map, it may overlap those two, which is going to create some sort of problem. And I don't understand it quite yet, but we have to be able to figure out all that before we move ahead.
There are a lot of things that we're going to have to look at before any legislation can be drawn up. And we have to realize the repercussions through all the little articles that I told you, all the little lines in statute that are going to take, that are going to have to be tweaked. And so it's not going to be just as easy as we rewrite a paragraph and everybody is going to be happy with the result. It's going to take some study and it's going to take a lot going on. I hope you will answer your question.
Donna, got a question for you. This is Mike Goods again. So since this is a pilot program, A, how long is this pilot program good for from a federal standpoint of getting money to do this? Because you got one in training, you got LD, and you. So that's the first question.
Well, right now the grant's only 3 years. So that would be your pilot program unless we expand it and continue with more grants.
Second question is, as this thing is progressing the way, doesn't look like it's going to go much anywhere, will you ask for continuing money so you can get another person down to training and spending federal dollars for that person? And this whole thing is still totally up in the air as far as where it's going to go.
So it's a lot of what ifs. A lot of what ifs. I have to look at the call value, and the number one thing I'm looking at is officer safety. So when they're going to a DV call, there should always be 2 officers. We're trying. I mean, you might need a first shift, second shift, third shift. So this is where you're getting the additional officers that can respond on a swing shift. Or if it's in the middle of the night, you've got 2 officers on that shift. Does that kind of help out with what we're looking for manpower? It is beginning phases, so I can't give you 100%. But right now we just have 2 in the budget. That is it to even see how does the community feel, how do we solve the issues of where we have the breakdown of being able to finish these cases and then to the DAs if we can get the authority. So if we don't get the authority, then do we need those extra officers? I don't know. And then how does that look like with special commission with BIA just taking them to tribal court for our tribal issues or taking them federal? And I don't think we should go federal and everything, but that would be the only option they have.
So if this doesn't go, what happens to what you have right now? Are you gone? Is LD gone? Is the gal down there?
After this, I kind of want to be gone, but no.
But what happens? What's the end result?
No.
The community says, not no, hell no.
Okay, so if you guys say H, no. The program would still continue for the tribal courts. The officers will still investigate on the tribal side and the misdemeanors. We just have to work with our partners on the federal side to continue working the more serious cases. I just don't agree with taking people to federal court. I think what will happen is, obviously they can detain somebody that's a felony level and then ask for a trooper to come transport and do the case for us. That's what will happen if it doesn't go through at this point.
Okay, I just wanted to make a statement, obviously for myself. So again, I trust a lot of you up there, and I appreciate you guys coming and talking to us. I guess my question is for further down the road when we talk about legislation and we talk about the Senate and the House and how they work together or not work together. And I guess I'm new at all this and popped my head up, and as I'm watching over the last few years, when we talk about bills that need to be written or statutes need to be started or changed or whatever, I guess my lack of trust is in that process at that moment, is when we're watching how our representatives from Anchorage or around here all over the state are not representing us for our constitutional rights that are already in place, and that we shouldn't have to come meet and we shouldn't have to fight for something that's already there. And so I guess that's kind of my question and my mistrust, is that when we open these doors to the federal government or to the state that we might not trust right now because of maybe elections or because maybe you lost your jobs because you're unvaccinated, or all these issues that are issues for someone, right? And so I guess that's just what I think is it feels like we're opening an opportunity for people that are not speaking for the people to make changes, because they're already there to make the changes, and they have their little cliques and their little whatever, and they have that power right now, and we don't. We're voices, and we are the mass, but the minority is speaking for us, but not saying what we need them to say. So anyways, I keep repeating myself, get nervous up here. Anyways, so I guess that's it, because it seems like everybody is not trusting our own state and our own government that's supposed to be representing us, and it seems like everyone's fearful that if we let that in more, and we let that in a little more, it opens the door to everything that we love to be gone, I guess. So, anyways, that's it, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love what you said. I think trust issues, and we'll leave it at the tribal side of it, but I think the big thing for you guys need to get out and vote. If you don't like what they're doing in June, vote them out. I mean, I hear people coming to these meetings, and people complain, but you don't go vote these people out. And do you want to say anything on voting or what the legislators are doing and hold them accountable? I don't put it on your mic because it's not my department.
She's not wrong. So I guess that, where'd she go? She was somewhere, sort of disappeared. Folks, I mean, that's why George and I are here. When he said this came out 2 weeks ago, I wasn't even aware of a lot of the issues. Why would I be? Because this hasn't happened yet, so it's a new thing. 2 weeks ago, this wasn't even really on my radar scope. It is now. Big old clip out there, all right? So that's the point of doing this, is so that George and I can listen to what is happening and what the community thinks. You guys know that. We talked about, you were there at that meeting. And we take it seriously. We do. Not everybody does. Legislation, from that one perspective of everything you asked about, is something that we could introduce. Somebody else could. Doesn't have to be us. A tribal entity or somebody else could ask another legislator to put it up, and then we would be stuck in that, what would we do? Support it or not? Try to kill it? Change it? That's how the process works. So, all I can tell you for now is that George and I are here listening to, obviously, almost complete 100% opposition for the most part to this, where it stands today. All I can promise you is that we'll keep doing this, and we'll try to find answers and see where this goes. And I've been very open with you guys. If the community doesn't support it, then I don't see how I can. Because it would not be right for me to do what you just said, which is, and I know this is a whole rabbit hole, but I'll give you the VFD for an example, right? It's clear that 80% of the people want that, but we keep not doing it. But that's a small group of people, but they have power, right? And it doesn't matter how many you vote out. And I noticed that voting, I agree with Donna, we need to vote more, not harder. You can't hit the button harder or fill in the bubble. And don't even go there in election integrity and that stuff. But what you can do is look at the numbers of people that we have replaced, which is about 2/3 of the legislature, is different than it was about 7 or 8 years ago. That's how much it's changed out, and things are still happening the way they are. So, I said all this for one reason. I'm going to make my pitch here to you right now. There's your legislators and your government has got your issues with it, and so do I. It's part of why I'm sitting here. I don't trust it either, and I'm in it. You have an opportunity this November to perhaps take a good portion of your government back, and there's only one way you're going to do it. It's not through legislators that go do whatever the heck they want, so I don't get too much in trouble, because I'm being videoed. But you have an opportunity every 10 years to vote for a constitutional convention. That's coming up this November. If you want to make changes to your government, that's how you're going to do it, because ironically, you're going to have to take it from us into your own hands to make those changes. And things like you're discussing, some of these things, you can do. One of your biggest issues is your judiciary, the judges, and how they're selected in this state. We don't do it like others, and that's not part of this discussion, so I'll stop. But you're not wrong in how you would do this, but you guys are going to have to take some of this power back. That's the reality. That's way out of the lane.
I got one question while
Go ahead.
Don't you think that this should probably be a voter issue rather than having legislators decide on something like this?
That's the question that was asked before as well. I think Gary asked about a police force in Glacier View. I don't know. I don't know how that would work based on what jurisdiction is here as far as a community council versus what you have, because you're in a borough, and the borough is really your governmental structure here. If it was an unorganized borough like Delta Junction, it's the state, because they're essentially the borough government. So that's an area that I don't know, that we can ask and try to find out what level that goes to and how you would generate that kind of a vote for something like this. I don't know what structure's in place, and George, maybe you do, I don't, on how you would do a vote like this that wasn't just like a referendum vote where we support it or we don't, but it doesn't hold the power of law, if that makes sense. So these are the questions we need to ask you guys. That's where we're going with this. So I find out. I don't know. I don't know a lot less today I realized when we started. So I have almost no answers, unfortunately. But we're going to find out.
Mike, you want to talk here?
I just wanted to say a few words. Mike Chmielewski with Radio Free Palmer. We have done two things here. Come out and I've streamed the video, and I've also streamed the audio. The audio recording will be up on our website, radiofreepalmer.org. And this video, every word that the two legislators have uttered today, will be there for you to review if you'd like. And to get that, you go to our YouTube channel, radiofreepalmer.org, and take a look at it. I cover a lot of meetings, and I would agree with the senator and others who said, this is a very, very interesting one. You've filled this room, and I would guess that hasn't happened very often. And you've had a spirited discussion about a topic and had two legislators who have expressed what they know and what they don't know. That's an interesting thing too. But in any case, if you want to see any of this, YouTube video and also the audio up there. Thank you very much.
I know there's I'll let George, if you have a question for me, because I don't think either one of us want to be released.
Yeah, I just want to know that. I know a lot of your names, and I wrote down your names, and I wrote down a lot of notes, but a lot of you haven't spoken yet, and a lot of you are going to speak publicly, but we also have addresses. You can email us, you can phone our offices, we have staff. I don't have as much as some of them, but anyway, you can phone our offices, you can try and get a hold of us, and we will. It takes a while sometimes, because we have other things to do than just write answers to email, but we do look at the emails, and our staff do count them, and they do tabulate what is being said, and the opinions that everybody has, and the different opinions that you all have. So, if anybody didn't get a chance to speak today, yes, you contact our offices anyway.
And I think this lady had a question.
Yes, I had a question for either one of you, because this is an elastic statute conversation we're having here to change this little line in our statute. Well, the problem that I see here, this isn't just a Sutton, Palmer, our area issue. This is a statewide issue, because this is changing everything for everyone, not just us in this little area. So if you're going to go to a vote, this has got to be the state of Alaska as a whole. That's my concern there, because we're not the only ones affected by it.
And that's a point I brought up earlier, that we're not just dealing with something that wants to happen right here. Because whenever we change it, I told you what we were going to have to change. The paragraph, the definition, it's going to be statewide. It's going to affect the tribal communities and the villages all over the state of Alaska. So it's a very good point, and I appreciate you doing that.
We have a couple folks that want to speak.
Yeah, let me add one more thing. And so that's why we're asking for the standard. There isn't a standard, so we're asking to have a standard. And I did like what Andy said. Is there a way to have a statute for the tribes to just deal with tribal issues? So these are good questions in the vote. And we do need a standard, because there's other tribes that are looking at trying to do this. We're not the only ones.
Hey, my name is Jeremiah. I'm a Sutton resident. It's probably a question for you, just out of curiosity. You said that if, say, a crime takes place and another jurisdiction reaches out for assistance and asks for help, would probable cause for a search, say that a search is derived out of that crime, would probable cause jurisdiction come out of the tribal police, or would that come more out of state?
If we did an agency, it says state.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all state.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Chris, and I live here in Sutton. I just have a couple of quick questions. I think it was asked earlier. So first of all, just to be clear, you did say that it's primarily to deal with crime among tribal members, right? Okay. And I think it was asked earlier, how many tribal members are there living in Chickaloon? And I didn't hear that answer. Is Is that, do you have any?
I do not have that answer.
So you guys
maybe the next
apply,
meeting.
you guys apply for grants and do all these things, and there's nowhere to put down how many people are part of the tribe that you're asking for grants for?
Let me find out. Chief, do you
Okay,
have that?
ballpark. Are we talking about 150? Are we talking about 50? Are we talking about 300? I mean, you gotta have some idea.
The 2020 census.
Well, I want to hear a number, that's all. I just think it's important if that's what all these resources are supposed to be going towards. Well,
there's 15,000 indigenous people in the valley that we are serving. So it's not just what you're talking about, how many.
I was using the words that were used earlier for tribal members. Yeah, and you know, this stretch of highway that has been described earlier, whatever 2 mile markers. In that stretch, how many Chickaloon, you know, how many tribal members live in that stretch of highway that we're talking about here today?
Quite a few. I don't have the answer for you exactly how many. But I'm not sure why that's supposed to matter so much. How many of you are here who are not tribal members? What does that matter? Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But
so
the other thing
reason
is,
it matters
while I have
is
the
if it's
mic,
like 30 people, you know, then you have to wonder, well, that's an awful lot of resources and an awful lot of legwork to deal with 30 people, and that's great, you know, so, you know, you're really careful there's 30 people, I suppose. I mean, I'm just wondering what that number is, and I'm very surprised that you don't even have a ballpark.
I'll give you a ballpark.
For this stretch of highway that we're
I'll give you a
talking about.
ballpark. It's around 300. That's a ballpark for you.
Okay.
So
Thank
there
you.
you
Good.
go.
Okay, that's all I wanted, was a ballpark.
But the other thing here that a lot of people have been talking to me personally, saying I'm some kind of whatever, yet you're upset that I'm not a vigilante and don't go out here and do all of these things that you want me to do.
Who said that?
Who said that? Well, let me see. I believe that there was at least 2 people that came up here and were mad at me personally.
Calling you a vigilante. Nobody did.
I didn't say they.
You said that.
I didn't say they called me a vigilante, but the actions that they want me to do are vigilante actions.
Nobody said that.
Well, if they want me to go out and start trying to figure out who's burgled what and all of that and take them to task, that's vigilante if they want me to do it. Well, you heard them attack me about it.
I turned my back on you. I'm done with you.
Well, that's fine, because sometimes people have to disagree.
You're a liar.
No, I'm not a liar. When I'm asked to do those things that were done, that's vigilante, because I'm not a cop.
Okay, well, I think they were addressing the chief and the tribe, not necessarily yourself personally.
No, they were being asked.
Anyway, so latest census was 85% non-native in the community. But I don't know what that
Frank,
means number-wise.
I saw on one of their grants, recent grants, that they had 252 members of the Chickaloon tribe.
Okay, so there's a number, 252 on the latest grant proposal, so, according to Ms. Mason.
There are 2 tribes, the Chickaloon Creek tribe and the Chickaloon Native tribe. And the Chickaloon Native tribe is part of the Philly tribe, part of the Chickaloon Moose Creek tribe. And so I don't know which numbers they're counting.
Hey, Bobby,
So
thank you for that, but Chickaloon Moose Creek is a corporation. Chickaloon Village Traditional Council is a federally recognized tribal government. They're different. There are 2 tribes within the Mat-Su Borough. There's the Kinnick Tribal Council, and they're an open enrollment tribe, and then there's the Chickaloon Village Traditional Council, and we're a direct lineal descendant tribe. Even though we have 300 plus, we don't point that out exactly because our elders told us not to do that. That's why he's not addressing that. it's a cultural issue. But we, not only do we serve our 300 plus tribal citizens, but we serve more than 5,000 Alaska Native peoples that live on this side of the borough. So there are numbers that we are responsible for serving them in a lot of our grants. It varies depending upon what the project is, what the program is, and what the initiative is. So we're not trying to not be transparent about that, it's different for based on whatever the different issues are. But in this particular case, our people are not just the people that live here, there are Alaska Native people all up and down this highway.
Thank you. Did everybody get to speak, that wanted to speak?
That 252 people, it said, included people living outside.
Okay. So everybody got to speak. Want to leave anybody out? Thank everybody for coming. It was pretty civil. I'm impressed. So a lot more questions, I'm sure. Now that we've had this meeting, are going to come up, but we have folks to direct those to. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you.